Hi there, this is Charmander, and today I get to have a special guest into the podcast, which is going to be Z. Everyone knows him as the go-to guy for in-depth analysis of what's going on in this game. So without further ado, Z, welcome, man.
Hey man, appreciate you having
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, been a long time I have wanted to speak
me.
with you, so it's super cool to finally get a chance to do that. I want to start our little podcast here with something funny that someone have said to me about you.
Oh no.
So
Yeah,
like I told you before we started recording, I do like drama, so I'll bring it up
please,
right
please.
away. So I was telling people, I usually recommend people to come to your YouTube channel to watch your videos and stuff because I feel like you have the most in-depth analysis and um, of any YouTubers pretty much. Like no one goes as deep as you when it comes to crunching data and figuring out like which is, the best course of action to follow if you're building specific, like armaments, for example, or bees or whatnot. So,
Sure.
so when I said that, someone said, I'm not gonna watch Z's videos because Z is a racist. Z Z is racist towards Arabs. So my question to you is, are you
Okay.
racist to Arabs?
You know what? To each their own, I guess. I mean, this is new news to me, but like how I'm always learning in the game, this might just be one of the things that I've learned today. I guess I'm racist towards Arabs.
Yeah.
But to my knowledge, no, not that I'm aware of. I think you've probably seen a lot of my videos and stuff. Like I'm strictly like to the game and whatnot.
Yeah.
I run an international alliance. I have a few Arabs in there.
Yeah.
Maybe they feel I'm or racially inclined towards. I don't. You know what? It's new news. That's all I'm gonna say, I guess.
Not for long. They're not gonna stay in your alliance after they hear this.
Yeah, I get. Maybe it was them. Maybe they sent
Yeah,
me
it was
there.
them. Yeah.
You know.
I thought it was oddly
Oh,
specific though when they said Arabs. I'm like,
yeah, that is very oddly specific. I'm trying to recall any interaction or conversation I have, and I mean that's yeah. Again, it's new news. That's all I'm gonna
yeah.
say.
Yeah. All right. Well, I personally think you're not actually a racist because I've seen some of your streams and you talk to people around the world and you're super nice and friendly and
I
stuff. So,
appreciate it.
but I mean, you could be a closet. I don't know, but
I've got secrets, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. All right, dude. So I want to start off this podcast actually just discussing kind of some more fun topic here. So let's start with something fun.
Sure.
Can you share with me one of the most favorite PvP events you've ever had, and like what happened, like what made it like your favorite?
Yeah, it was actually the very first island raid that ever happened on this game when it first came out. So backstory to that, I started in Region 23, and actually quite a few of my alliance members today still came from Region 23. But I started there. So did Mr. Spessy. A lot of people know him. We both started in 23, and it was ran by an alliance called SMHS. If you play up in Apex or Upper Elite, you're probably very familiar with them. And they kind of have held a reputation for a long time, specifically from their R5. Me and him are cool now, but at the time when the game first started, obviously the game was in a very different state. You didn't have, the easy migration or the easy ways to migrate. There wasn't KVK events like Island Raid, Genesis War, any of those things at the time. And so everything was very just like inner region drama, I guess you could say, especially when like competing for like the Metro. And SMHS had this kind of persona of just wanting to run the region by themselves. It was like, as the second strongest alliance in the region, we didn't want conflict, but they approached every alliance and basically said like they had to burn you once a week. You had to give them X amount of resources. If you didn't give them X amount of resources, they would burn the whole alliance. Like that's how intense it kind of got. And so after about like 3 months of that, after the server launched, myself and a lot of members, we left the region. Actually, we migrated out and we went to Region 7. And in the first island raid that we played, we met Mini Boone. It was Boone, but in all lowercase. They were kind of known as just Boone's like alt alliance almost from Region 6. And we ended up on a map with them, another strong team like Fox, by the name of Fox One, and actually SMHS, conveniently enough, even though we were in a different region. And we told Mini Boone about what had happened, why we were allying them, what SMHS did, kind of the backstory. And they pretty much set everything aside and just completely built towards them and just burnt them to a crisp day one or day two or something like that. And honestly, looking back, and we still talk about it, that was, I think I still have recordings of it on my phone. Like that's how like satisfying it was. Like to go from getting burned every single day in the region in Region 23 with your alliance members to now all of you guys just kind of witnessing the same people that did it get burned themselves was kind of just a feeling that hasn't really been replicated since. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's like sweet revenge, you could say, you know.
Yeah, it was.
Very satisfying from
Yeah.
the sound of it. Yeah, they sound like tyrants, you know, ruling with an
Mm.
iron fist.
Yeah, I think Panda made a video about them. I think it was like one of his first videos about the game. Actually, it was like over 2 years ago, and he had them in like an island raid or something and allied them, and they turned around and backstabbed them or something. I was like, bro, I told you these people were like that, and it was just they became a like a preface, I guess, of like being that type of alliance amongst the whole community, and like nobody wanted to ally them in like any IR like moving forward. So yeah, it was interesting times for sure.
Public enemy number one.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Are they still around or did they?
Oh yeah. No, they're still thriving. Like I said, me and the R5, that he was the one that kind of got everybody burnt, but like me and him have kind of settled our differences since then. We've fought each other in IRs and ARs and whatnot since then, over the last 2 years, and we've kind of come to terms that we square away. He's got like a 7.3 or mil or something like that rider set. Like the dude is not weak at all, and so we just kind of trade back and forth. But yeah, they're definitely still around. They're always playing Apex, I think so.
Oh, cool. Okay. That's interesting how you have like long histories with certain alliances, especially
Yeah.
someone like you's been playing for so long. When did that start, by the way? Do you know which year and month?
I think I started playing September of 2022. Yeah, it's almost we're coming up on 3 years now.
Really? The game's been around that long? Is that
Oh
when the game
yeah.
first came out, or
No, because Panda and Region One and all that was like and beta and whatnot. That was before my days. So I just looked at my VIP. So I've had an account for 1,018 days. It looks like. Yeah, it looks like it's been around for a minute.
like around?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Almost 3 years, it looks like. At least on my account. I'm not too sure when the game originally came out. I can't recall, but I know it was quite a bit before me.
Wow, that's crazy. Like I started in 2024 in February, so I guess I'm
Oh
pretty
wow.
new compared to you guys.
Yeah,
Uh,
about a year and a half.
yeah, but year and a half exactly. Um, I do think it's a little bit harder for newer players to catch up now with all the
Very much.
different
Yeah.
stuff in the game, and I think the budding Warzone didn't really help as much as
No.
it should have. Um, I just want to mention also quickly, my favorite event, PvP event ever, was an Archipelago raid, and a lot of those people that I played with in that event they're actually in your alliance right now, which is super cool.
Oh, okay. The one that we were just talking about, the one that had me, you, and Panda and everyone in it.
No, 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 a different one. So we had an Archipelago raid before that one. Uh,
Oh,
you know what? Screw it, man. I'll just steer some drama here. Fuck it. Fuck it.
oh, please.
So we had an Archipelago raid in Grow Up when I was, in High Guys Alliance, and that was like a really weird time for us because from that point or for up on, we haven't won a single PvP event at all.
Really?
We except for one Genesis War, which my friend Jigsaw, the guy who trolls people in Discord,
Yeah.
yeah, he did a great job because he was the head of diplomacy for our alliance. So he managed to make us win GW all three windows, 3 out of 3, just using pure diplomacy. But then the other players got mad because he pretty much allied with everyone on the map. That's why we won.
Oh.
But it's a win. I'll take it because we haven't
No, sure. A win's a win at the end of the
we
day,
haven't won anything. So I felt like, you know what, let's take it because we haven't, like as an alliance, you should strive to get at least first place at each of the event once.
oh, of course, of course.
That's just my perspective. So since that moment, we haven't won anything. It's been like 5 months or something, 4 or 5 months, nothing. Like it's
Wow.
completely dry. We just get obliterated every single event, and then we had like a mass exodus before the second mass exodus. There's a lot of mass exodus in Grow Up.
Oh
Um,
no. Oh
so the
no.
first the first mass exodus, I got promoted to. I was already an R4, but I was in charge of doing something called efficiency reports. So basically, I would take people's kills and I would divide it by their might or something like that. I'm not sure if that's how I did the math, but
Yeah.
and then I would have like a certain ratio, like
Yeah,
you.
that's what we do. Yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we did that just to kind of determine which players are providing help to the alliance or who are dead weight, pretty much, right?
of
Uh,
course.
so I was doing that at first. It was really unpopular because people, I guess, wanted to slack off or something. I don't know,
Oh
but
God.
but regardless, later on, that wasn't my role anymore. I became the war general instead.
Okay.
It was my first day in a job as a war general in Archipelago raid. Um, and at that time, we had this girl that came to our alliance. Actually, one of the people that High Guy interviewed in his channel, and he had a huge crush on her. So I'm like just letting out like all the drama
Wow.
out of here.
Wow. We are just, yeah, we're just putting all the dirt out there.
I am, yeah.
Dirty laundry. Okay.
I'm all about drama here. But anyway, um, so during the event, he wasn't thinking with the right head, you know. Uh,
Oh, God.
and
Okay. Yeah.
so he was like head over heels in love with this person, and like and so he was telling us, hey, listen to what she says. She's gonna tell us the battle plan for this AR, and you guys are gonna follow her lead. And I completely went the opposite. I did not follow what she was saying because I felt like it wasn't a good plan. No
Makes
offense to
sense.
her, she's a nice person, but I just didn't
Sure.
think it was a good plan. And she wasn't the war general. Like I'm the war general, and also this other guy that also got promoted at the time as war general. So there was two of
Yeah.
us, right? So we
Yeah.
completely disobeyed his order, and we decided because he said don't help the other alliances in our legion when we're trying to cut off, at the city six area. You know,
Interesting.
like if sometimes you start on a map where you can cut them off early.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and then so we decided to go help out, and that AR looked completely what's the best word to describe this? It looked completely bad. Like we clearly were not going to win because the enemy had so many whales. It's not like we didn't have any whales, we just didn't have many. Like
Yeah. No,
we
that
have
makes
whales.
sense.
Um, but yeah, we were gonna get obliterated just on paper, on paper. Plus our ally, that because in AR you have like other legions that's your ally, right? So they weren't doing anything either. So they're like, kind of like farmer-ish, you could say,
That's
as
the
a legion.
worst. That's the worst part of AR, honestly.
Yeah. So, anyways, long story short, we defied his order and we went ahead and helped. It was a 4 day never-ending battle. It was so fun. It was so fun.
Wow. Yeah.
We
That
didn't
those are
stop.
the
It
best.
was like 12 hours. I would go to sleep and they're still fighting when I'm like, you know. And yes, like I said, like two of those people in that AR during your alliance, shout out to them, Driller and Monster. Like, they're in your alliance, right?
OC Driller and Monster, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're in. Yeah.
Yeah, they're from Row, which was an alliance I actually wanted to join because I enjoyed playing with them so much. Um, but yeah, no, it was really good. And I think some of the things that happened there was at first everyone was fighting. It was like, okay, well, we can't coordinate the triple rally. Um,
Uh,
but I think like for me personally, like I think one of the best calls I made in that game was like, okay, guys, we have to make Monster lead this whole thing. Like Monster he has to lead the entire battle, like what we're gonna do for the battle plan, because otherwise, all like the leaders are butting heads and stuff, right?
hmm
But then I kind of saw that, this monster guy, he knows what he's doing. Let's just follow what he's doing, right? So then
Yeah. Yeah.
by
That
then,
makes sense.
then we got organized, and by the third day, we were like a well-oiled machine, triple rallies nonstop. We were even though we were fighting like a team that was so much stronger than us, we won just from pure teamwork, and it was really
Wow.
close. Like we were like in the middle of City 8, and they were pushing us closer and closer to the dead ruins, right? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
is that what it's called, or is that IR? Anyways, um, City 8, whatever. Um, and then we won, and it was like the first AR win of Grow Up at the time, and
Wow.
it was really nice. It was like a nice moment, and it went down.
Yeah, no, that's that sounds pretty memorable. I guess like if I could ask like one question, right? And this isn't like a jab at Grok or whatever have you,
Sure.
or anything like that. I know that you just mentioned it. I know that you mentioned that there's like obviously like a lot of strategy involved, and you have things like war generals appointed and strategy involved, and everything that kind of revolves around that. I think that, like you kind of said, you guys kind of became a well-oiled machine, and it ended up working for you guys. And just strictly off of teamwork, that helped dominate in terms of the AR, which I think is like one of the most fun aspects of the game. And I'm sure you'd agree. It's just that you can beat a paycheck or someone's credit card by simple strategy in some cases, right? Um, so my question to you is, and again, prefacing this as isn't a jab at Grop, this happens to a lot of alliances, but when you say that you didn't win, any events and whatnot, what would you say is, and you can speak this from a general term for what you see in other alliances as well, what would you say is one of the biggest reasons why alliances may not see as many victories as some of the other ones that maybe are in the same bracket as them but don't have as stronger players and such? Like what would you say from your perspective is kind of the pitfall?
I would point out two different things. two different factors, personally.
Sure.
And I'm speaking from a fearless Warzone player,
Yeah,
so
yeah, of
I
course, of
don't know
course.
how it is for Elite and Apex, but I think the first one that I would say would be the biggest issue is you don't have any proper rally and garrison captains.
Yeah, makes sense.
Um, and when I say proper, you should have, a counter for every single garrison that could
Of course.
potentially be in your way, so you need to have like a ranged rally captain, rider rally captain, and infantry rally captain, right? And,
Mhm, mhm.
they need to have proper armaments as well and whatnot. So I think that's the biggest problem. I see a lot of people rallying with Miyamoto. I call them Miatards. They're retarded.
Oh, no.
And, and people get so mad at me in my YouTube channel. They like leave a comment like you lost all credibility, Charmander, for saying that you can't rally with
It's
me,
okay, I get that,
Miyamoto.
yeah.
But anyways, so that's the first one. And I think the second one is when it comes to registration, people are like, we registered as low as possible. How come we were matched with so many strong players? I think a lot of people don't realize that when it comes to registration, you're registering based on ratings, not the might.
Yeah,
So
yeah, true.
if you go to Pompeii, right, you can see like the ratings of each
The
player.
battle ratings, yeah.
Yeah. So, people are not taking that into consideration. Like you have a lot of, let's say you have a lot of let's say T6 players, but those T6 players are bloated, right? They're like,
Yeah.
they,
Troop inflated, right?
sorry,
Just troop inflated, right?
yeah, either troop inflated or they're building up three heroes or three troop types at the same time instead of hyper focusing on one.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
Like unless you're a whale, I don't think you're able to do that. Like to um, power up all three troop types. Uh,
Yeah,
so there's a lot of issues. Or armaments are lacking. Like let's say you spread out your armaments instead of having one hero that's super strong armaments.
yeah,
So I think, in my opinion, those are the two biggest factor. I mean, obviously there's more than that, but
sure.
like if you're going by the 80-20 rule, that's what I would kind of think.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I would agree from an elite and an apex standpoint as well. I think that like even the times that, like so we used to be in G1 all the time in AR and whatnot and all the events, and then oh gosh, when they brought out the new Apex, Elite, and Fearless Warzone stuff, that's when we decided, okay, like like we have actually a way here to kind of target where we should land. Because prior to that, I think this was like a running joke between me and Panda was that we could have our alliances at 14 bill, which we had at one point, and cut all the way down to 6 bill, and it didn't matter. IGG was going to place us in G1, so we always called G1 the YouTuber bracket because that's where me and Panda would always just kind of end up, But then when they brought out the Apex and the Elite and the Fearless stuff, we're like, okay, you know what? We may not be able to control like where we land, but if they're going to push us up to the top of the bracket, if we can control that we can, go into Elite, at least we know that we're capped out at like G6, right? And so that's kind of what we've done as well. But even during the times that we've gone back and visited Apex, which we just did this last AR, or all the time that we spent in G6 and Elite, it's kind of the same thing, right? Especially like in AR, you go to triple rally a tower and the enemy has a 7.2 mil Ethan in the garrison. We're sitting comfortably with I think we have like 11 or 12 7 mil sets with us. But then you talk to the other alliances in your legion to see who can triple rally it, who can tank rally it, whatever there. And the next best that you have on your team is like a 4.5 mil range, and they're going to get demolished even if they are the second or third rally. So I would actually completely agree. At least that being like the main focal point, I think, is that a lot of alliances kind of just view power as a raw number. You kind of see this all the time as well when watching other YouTube videos. Like nobody like specifically per se. I see this all the time. Someone will just pull up like an alliance. They'll see a 300 mil player on the roster without looking at their kills or anything like that, and they'll just go, "Oh, they have a 350 mil player. Why are they in G20 or whatever have you?" And then you click into the account. The account is dirt old, has nothing but blue parts, but they're 300 mil because they're inflated off of troops, and so it's like they're really as strong as like what, like 140 mil player or something, which is a lot of troops.
Right.
So yeah, I would agree, and I think that too that the battle rating that you're mentioning, you can see that in AR because you can register. Like I think we registered like 7 bill or 7.4 bill for Apex, but our combat rating was like 16 bill. And I think that they've put out enough information on that specifically to say like the top end players will weigh more, and that comes from like your kill counts, your troop total sizes, your parts. Now, obviously, you can manipulate your garage, your armaments, your beasts, and that kind of a thing. So those don't really attribute to it, but yeah, I would just say that I think that a lot of alliances are just very top heavy, like you said, with T6 players that can't carry the weight to be in even G50 plus. and they're running around with like a 3.5 or 4 mil armament leader set, and then wondering, like, I get these reports all the time. I actually just had 2 messages today, coming to think of it, where people were like, hey, what happened to this report? Why did we trade so bad? This player's only like 150 mil, we're 250. Like, what happened there? And yeah, I think it's definitely something that a lot of players seemingly kind of overlook, just because they think that like power equals combat effectiveness.
Right, right. Yeah, 100%. Just want to make a funny comment actually with what you just said also when you're trying to organize a triple rally. I had an AR where I went to, by the way, I'm the biggest Miyamoto hater in the game, but uh, so I went up to the other teams in my Legion and I said, okay, guys, let's set up a triple rally. Can you please let me know who is going to be representative in your alliance to help us with the triple rally situation? And then afterwards, I said, "Oh, by the way, Miyamoto is not a rally hero." And
You got a lot of flack for that.
it was dead silent. And then I got waited, and then finally someone said, "I only have Miyamoto." And then
Oh
other,
no.
and then the other four alliance said, "Oh, we only have Miyamoto." I'm like, "God damn it!" Like this is why I said this ahead of time. So, so we said, "Okay, fine, just rally with Miyamoto, whatever, better than nothing, at this point." Um, anyways, so based on what you actually just said, I actually want to bring up one of the questions that someone wanted me to ask you.
Sure, sure.
So someone wanted me to ask you, which war zone are you playing in right now? Because someone said you were in Apex recently, but then I think
Mhm.
from my knowledge, you usually play in Elite. But then, do you guys also play in Upper Fearless? Like, what is your like? Where are you usually? Like,
So if you look right now, we're in G7 Island Raid. We target G6. When I say G6, that's typically AR, right? Because we'll usually register, and I'm kind of the same way as you. So the way that we run registration, and really more so like recruitment, and if someone stays in the alliance, that kind of a thing. We don't have a revolving door. Like a lot of the members have been in. Like once you're in, you're typically in like for a long time unless you quit. Um, the way that we do it is that we have the same thing, the ratio that you kind of run, where it's like your power, your kills, that kind of a thing. But really, rather than looking at the kills, we kind of just look at power, because the power is determining what bracket we're going to be in, and we have an overall goal of not trying to go to Apex. And people might be like, oh, well, why are you not targeting Apex? Why are you not targeting Apex? You guys are just avoiding that kind of thing. We get those messages all the time. But when you look at G6, and you take a look at the combat rating of some of the alliances in there, that actually play in there, like TPL, for example, Prim with Panda, ourselves, MXO. Like there are other alliances that'll go to, maybe not NXO, I can't remember the name, but anyways, but in G6 itself, they will have, and I know this off the top of my head, 15, anywhere between about 14 to 16.5 bill combat rating. And when you compare that to G5, G4, and G3, those combat ratings should actually be up in G3, right? Like a lot of G5 and G4 alliances in Apex during AR are actually down at about 11 or 12 bill power on average. So G6 ends up being kind of the more fun Apex. And the reason for that is that, we have whales for sure, right? But it might be like 6 or 7 players out of a roster of 45 players being registered. And when you take that and you go up against a team, like say like SSI or something, where you have 160 fighters and 80 of them are whales, or 60 of them are whales, with 10 of them being major whales. It's just kind of, it's not nearly as fun. And this was something that's kind of come on for the last 2.5 years, almost 3 years of playing the game, is that I think that one of the main reasons why I've managed to keep my same roster for Region 23, or a lot of those players have been playing with me for 2.5 years, is that as an alliance leader, I kind of look at it as like, I don't want my alliance to be just nothing but garrison fillers, right? Everybody knows that I'm a garrison leader. Everybody knows that I play like infantry, that kind of thing. That's great. But I don't feel like somebody's start and stop of enjoyment of a game should just simply be clicking on a tower and refilling it and refilling it and refilling it. Like I want them to be able to experience all aspects of the game, which is the field battling, hitting cement marches, fighting in middle for the zombies and all that kind of a thing. Like I want you to feel like you're actually having an impact on the field. And so I kind of look at the alliance as like an overall average. Like what is our overall average power or combat effectiveness, right? Like we might have a few players up at the 300 mil plus mark that are our rally or garrison leaders, sure. But if 75, 80, 85% of the alliance is nothing more than T6 field players with maybe 4.5 mil marches at best on their best marches, then that doesn't scream Apex to me, right? Just simply because again, we spent a year in G1 straight every single event and know what that's like. I can sit there and I can garrison all day long and defend and hold the tower, but then when it comes to fighting for cement or fighting the zombies in the middle of a chainsaw and that kind of a thing, their experience diminishes really quick. And for me, I don't mind taking backlash with people saying like, "Oh, you have rally leaders or garrison leaders that shouldn't be in G6." That's totally fine because what my overall goal is to make sure that the 35 or 36 other players that aren't rally or garrison captains can actually enjoy the game to the fullest and play it right. So we target G6 for AR, so we're typically around like rank 104, 103 or something like that when it comes to registering. And when we recruit people, what we end up doing is that we have these different brackets to say, okay, if you are a 250 mil plus player, you should be getting X amount of points per event, which I think the ratio is like 80% of your might. And then it drops down to like if you're 100 to 150 mil, you should be getting like 60 or 65% of your might in points every event. And the reason for that is that if I'm going to put us down in a bracket where every player can be effective and play the field, have enjoy every aspect of the game, then the expectation is that you should be doing those things, right? We're not dropping down into an easier bracket and giving up some of the upper rewards of Apex just so then you can, sit back and play lazy kind of a thing or whatever, or just skim by on wins. So yeah, the expectations are definitely there. Everybody knows that at the door you're joining a fighter alliance, so expectations are made. And I think that that's kind of carried us. And I think that that's one of the main reasons why we can keep some of our upper end players. Just speaking as somebody that has, been in alliances or merged with alliances or been in an alliance that was up to 14 bill ourselves, I know that a lot of these upper whale players, you could be looking at people like Coco, like Coco Bongo, just basically people at that caliber level, they will get burnt out if they're in an alliance where they are carrying 95% of the weight. They can do those things, but if continuously event after event after event after event, they're doing 1 to 2 bill plus points themselves, and you're running average of everybody in the alliance for their war meets war points might be like 30 or 40 mil. There's a huge discrepancy here, and that's typically where you see those whales, get burnt out and quit the game and stuff. And I've seen it firsthand. A lot of my original friends that were whales and whatnot back in the game, in the early days, got burnt out trying to carry alliances that just simply weren't fighting. So yeah, we've definitely built a reputation ourselves where we try to have 100% participation. Obviously, we're all human. I'm human, you're human. So life comes first, family comes first, health comes first. We preach those things for sure. But yeah, we basically trust that the person next to us will be fighting. They will be, playing. And then what I do is I total up all the war meets war points at the end of the event, divided by how many players that we registered with, and then that kind of gives you the average war meets war score that we have or did have during that event, with the exclusion of some of the outliers like the upper point ranking players. And what I noticed was that the last few events that we played in Apex, where we were doing G1 back to back to back, I think our average score, because of the caliber that we were having to play against for the average player, was like 30 or 40 mil points, even though they were giving it their absolute best. You're just getting mopped in the field by someone that has, 5, 7 mil marches. And when we dropped to G6 with the same level of participation, same player count, same player roster and stuff like that, our average war meets war score had bumped up to like 140 mil, like literally overnight. And that's when we kind of recognized that we had made the right choice, that there's actually an enjoyment factor here. And I think that that's also one of the main recruitment factors that we have, is that I've never promoted FIB as being an alliance that's recruiting. I just get I get messaged quite a bit for people wanting to join, and honestly, a big sum of the players that are messaging to join are players leaving Apex simply because of that. Is because they feel like the upper end players in Apex, like those whales, because of the state of the game and the disparity, like you said, between like the free to play player and the top end player is so large that their level of enjoyment is quickly diminished because they feel like they're falling further and further behind. So I know that that's a long answer, but it's definitely like multi-parted included.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. That's really good. The only thing I was thinking in my head when you were saying this is like, oh my God, I have so many questions for you now.
Oh, please.
That's spawned out of what you just said. And I'm like, I hope I don't forget what I want to ask, which is annoying. So first, I want to mention that I think the quota that you have for each player is sounds very realistic. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Um, the next thing is you said earlier that kills also plays a part when it comes to your battle ratings. Is that true?
It very much seems like it because what one of the things that we did right is that we when I ran or when we migrated to Region 164 initially, about a year ago, I was running a 14 bill alliance. I had merged with a couple other alliances, and a couple other alliances merged into us, and we had a 14 bill alliance that we were playing in every event with. And when they brought out Elite and stuff like that, like I said, we kind of split the alliance to try to target going into Elite instead. And our sister alliance, even though we have very similar power ratings, that like overall alliance power ratings when it comes to registration, because again, neither one of us are trying to get into Apex. We are consistently, 20, 30 G's above where they're at or where they're getting placed for like AR, Island Raid, that kind of a thing. I think at one point in time it was like 60 was the difference. And we controlled the variable one event where we were putting in like similar rally leaders, garrison leaders, that kind of a thing on both teams. But the one disparity that we had was that when you went to the ranking portion of the game, where you can go to like regional rankings and taking a look at like what the different alliances rank at, one of those rankings is the alliance kill count. And our alliance kill count, even though I think we were only like 400 mil difference in total alliance power, the total kill difference was like 2.5 bill kills in our favor. And we ended up like, again, it wasn't even close. It was like 25 G's ahead of them. So is that to say that kills are a contributing factor? No, but again, it was something to where it's like, okay, if we can control that we have, 4 7 mil rally leaders in their group and 4 7 mil rally leaders in ours, two garrison leaders, that kind of a thing, and we can control as many variables as possible. The one thing that we can't modify or change is the kill counts, and that was like the one big disparity that we had. And I've heard this from quite a few people as well over time that I've had this discussion with, like because it's not new news to try to be a team that figures out like how can I go into a more appropriate G bracket for myself and my team. So I've been discussing this with a lot of players for a long time, and the conversation consistently comes up that kill seems to be a large factor as well. And I think you can also kind of see that in the Pompeii registration when you do the battle rating, is that you might have somebody that you're actually stronger on paper than with your gear, but they may have more kills than you, and their battle rating actually is higher than yours.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that because it did seems to be an influence, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't quite
Mm-hmm.
sure. But
Yeah, no, it's hard to say. They don't tell us. So
right. But hearing your story, it does sound like it is an aspect or one of the.
it definitely feels like it. And when you really like break it down and think about it, it makes sense. Like if you're going to be playing with somebody, if a player has a high amount of kills as opposed to the average kill count for their might, then that just tells the game and the system, hey, this player is more actively focused on war and is more active, participates more. Like that's what their focal point is. So we should probably bump them up into a bracket that may be more challenging. Like again, on paper that makes sense. Could we be completely wrong? Absolutely. It's IGG. We'll never know. But just statistically looking, it makes sense too.
Okay, that's you know what, for me that's good enough. I will take that as a factor when it comes to registration. I am curious though because you made it sound so easy when you said earlier, "Oh, we were playing in Apex and then suddenly we dropped to Elite." I'm like, "What did you cut out to
Yeah,
to
yeah.
to be able to drop down? Like, don't you have to either remove players then that is not maybe pulling their weight or like how did you make like okay, a quick question also. I don't know if you want to
Yeah.
entertain
No,
this.
please. No,
When
please.
you put your troops in the hospital during registration, will that also affect your battle ratings? Would it go down then as a result? Like
So that is something I've actually kind of wondered myself. So by practice, a lot of times, like since we have back-to-back events, there are definitely people amongst our ranks. I don't necessarily do it. Some days, like I'm just super busy and I completely forget to heal before the net registration of the next event. I might not log in for a couple of days. Um, but I do know that there are people that actively like, hey, if we're going from island raid to archipelago raid, I'm not going to clear out my hospital completely. I'm going to keep it full. That'll keep my might down. That'll keep my total troop count down. That kind of a thing. I'm not sure if the game accounts for that or not. It definitely seems it seems two parted. Where on one hand, it may not count towards your overall power, but I feel like which that's determining like, hey, am I going to be an apex in the top 100, or am I going to be an elite, rank 101 plus? But I think that the game accounts for it on the battle rating side of things, where it's like, hey, those are still actively in there. That's counting towards your battle rating. But I think it manipulates your overall alliance power, which determines, which bracket you're going to be in. In terms of what G you land in, I don't think it has any influence there.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So because that again, that's kind of like what we manipulate already, anyways. Where you were saying like, oh, what did you have to do to cut down to elite and stuff? Yeah,
Right.
unfortunately, I'm a very people person. Maybe it's one of my pitfalls, and I'm a very people pleasing person. I always want to make sure that everybody is enjoying themselves. I talked about that earlier. But at the same time, I had noticed again when we were registering back with 14 build, I was losing top end players and stuff because we had too much dead weight, and I had tough conversations with them about they either quit the game or moved to a different alliance at the time because we just had too many players that just they felt like weren't carrying their weight and stuff, and so it became like I guess a message to myself of, hey, like you need to sacrifice the players that aren't contributing to the alliance anyways for in order to save the ones that are actively doing the most for the alliance. So hurt the feelings of a few to kind of save the feelings of the many, kind of a thing. Was what it ended up kind of being, and so that's when I really started enforcing and putting into place the thresholds for your power and then your expectation. And it's on the alliance message when you join the alliance, where if you join, you'll get a message, or whatever, like that introductory message. Part of that message tells you, like, hey, if you're between this might and this might, expect to, score this many points during events. If something comes up, if you have something busy in life or whatever have you, just let me know. I'm not going to hold that over your head. But if you're not communicating that and you're actively not scoring points, odds are we're going to have a conversation about like, hey, like, is this the right bracket for you, or that kind of a thing. So
Right. Yeah, I totally get that because I personally struggle with that as well. Like I have a very close alliance and I'm like, I don't want to kick anyone out. Like I feel like,
no, no,
yeah, they've been here since we first started. It feels like a
yeah, of
family. Yeah,
course,
they're not pulling their weight. I know that, but I still like them. They're very entertaining. They're friendly
no,
and stuff.
sure,
So I'm like,
sure.
oh, what do I do with this? But then I know that, ultimately when the war happens, they're not pulling their weight, and then suddenly, the players that are contributing all the time are pissed off, right? They're like, oh, okay.
Yep, yep,
So ultimately, you have to make those hard decisions, right? It's
very much, yeah.
is it like, but do you kick them out or do you just not register them?
We talk about it, right? Like again, because I'm very personable, I try to have a conversation with them because in a lot of cases, like at one point in time, and maybe you've seen this too, like at one point in time, maybe they were scoring really well, but maybe for the last few events they just haven't, and you're not sure what's going on. And you talk to them, and they're usually like, "Oh yeah, I got super busy, I got a new job, it's summertime, I'm with my kids, whatever, whatever, whatever." And at that point, it just kind of becomes something of, okay, like, hey, like, do you have enough time to like play partially? We can just lower the expectations for you, because if I kick you or if I remove you from registration, we're going to go down 150 mil. But because I have so many, like, I can't use this for everybody, but for us, we have so many top end players that it doesn't matter if I register with 5 bill power or at the cusp of being ranked 100 for AR at 7 bill power, we're still going to get G6 every single time, right? So me removing them doesn't necessarily do anything for us in terms of a benefit, other than, in the long term, having more room to recruit. So I talk to them and just try to figure out like, hey, is this like a short term issue? Are you just losing interest in the game? Is life kind of taking you elsewhere? And in the cases where life is taking them elsewhere, they just don't have time for the game, but they still want to actively grow their account. We just keep them in the alliance. We just don't register them for events. But then they still get access to all like the free rewards, the gifts, and then when you capture like the checkpoints or the buildings or whatever have you, they get the first capture rewards. So there's still a lot there for them to grow their account without having that expectation over their head.
Gotcha. No, I like that one because they're still part of your alliance,
Oh, for sure,
from a social aspect, you could say. But
sure.
and then it's not like you kick them out, so they're still a part of it. But at the same time, it's also fair to the active players that are out there getting, spending time to fight. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that like one of the biggest things about that makes it very easy is that like if you put the expectation at the door, and I'm very clear and communicative with them about that. It's like, hey, it's on the alliance wall. It is a requirement that we have for all the new players. If I continue to make if I continue to make exceptions for players to say, hey, you don't need to hit the points, you don't need to hit the points, then it makes it very hard for me as a leader to then go out and recruit other players, or to bring other players in. Because if I recruit someone in and I tell them, hey, you have to hit 60 mil points per event, and if you don't hit it, we're gonna have to have a conversation. But then they see that you're only scoring 20 mil points, and they ask why. If I make an exception for one, I have to do an exception for all. And usually at that point, they're very understanding of it because they know it's like, I'm not attacking you. I'm not coming at you personally. It's just that functionally as a group, I can't manage this group and maintain it and keep it in an environment that promotes everybody growing and enjoying themselves unless I hold everybody to the same expectations. So
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. I do want to mention something though. What do you do about stat patterns? Because you have players that, go out and they fight a lot in the field, but then when the fight actually happens, like a tower war or something, and you need people to be there, they're not there. They don't join garrison, they don't join rally. Their death count is super low because and it's obviously just stat patterns, like lots of
yeah,
kills, but you didn't really make a difference in the game, right? Like you didn't move the needle.
we I would say that we don't have that problem, and maybe it's multi-parted, and maybe part of that benefit is just like the reputation that myself and others hold. But when you come to FIB, right, and I'm not putting myself on a pedestal here or anything like that at all, I promise. What I'm simply getting at is that, like, if you watch my videos or you come around my name, it's typically like, hey, he either knows a lot about the game or you just know that, like, I'm an infantry garrison main, right? So when people come to the alliance, a lot of their expectation is like, hey, they're playing around Z's garrison. And because of the bracket that we play in G6, there's still a lot of strong players and stuff that we're going to go up against. Or right now in Island Raid, we're in G7 against very strong teams. There are people there that have 5, 6 mil, 7 mil plus marches on with max garages and stuff, and so they can get messed up in the field. But what ends up happening is that when you see that we're trading very well on garrisons, or we have very good rally leaders and we're trading well there, it kind of like naturally pivots for players to go, oh, I can put my troops into there, score the same amount of points, and have a lot less losses and stuff. Aside from that, on the alliance wall, again, like one of the biggest things that I preach is that, like, I'm not here to just dictate and run the whole alliance. We run this like uniformly. Any one of my R4s can make a call on my behalf when I'm offline, and that's totally fine. I trust them with that. At the same time, anytime we make changes in the alliance, like if we're changing Pompeii registration times or Ampede start times, anything like that, we're running polls on Discord to get everybody's input and everybody's voices on it. So it's a very community run oriented family type of knit. And so because of that, like one of the main pieces that we emphasize is like, hey, like, and actually I have this on the wall when you or the welcome message when you join. I'm not looking for someone to play Superman for the team, right? I would rather take 100 mil players that play for the team, play for the overall team goal, and play for the team experience, as opposed to one person that's out there trying to hyper carry the field alone, right? Like that's just not that's not the environment that we kind of promote. You might see that more in like Apex teams, or if you go into like Fearless, for example. I know that there are strong players that go down there just to try to field dominate and stuff, which is totally fine. And it's a niche in the game and it's a way to play it. It's just that the way we play it is like we play around the murder ball, we play around the team, that kind of a thing. And if you talk to Panda, his team is very much the same way. They have huge amounts of field control and stuff, which is like one of the main problems you have playing against Prim, is that they're very active in the field together as a team, so they consistently have a murder ball. But he's talked about it as well, is that you can have a murder ball or field control all day long against FIB, but it won't matter, because if FIB is in a garrison or in a tower or in a choke point, you're not going to break that tower because the whole team is reinforcing it. So yeah, again, I think it's just like the dynamic of the team that we build, and the dynamic of the person that we're looking for when recruiting is that we want somebody that's as selfless as possible. And when I do recruit, or when I do let someone in, I let them know like, hey, you're on a 30-day, 45-day probation period, and this is much time for you to figure out if this is the place that you like, as much as it is for us to figure out if you're a good fit for us or not. And one of the things that I'm looking at from my end is like, hey, are you reinforcing rallies? Are you reinforcing garrisons? Are you following the team objectives or markers that are being put up by anybody? And basically just playing with the team, or are you off doing your own thing, that kind of thing. So
Right, gotcha. Well, I like that probation period thing that you mentioned, and then the other thing that I also like was the carrot and the stick. When you
yeah, yeah.
like when you dangle like, oh, amazing trades for Garrison, amazing trades for Rockies. You should join. If you don't join, you're gonna miss out. I like that. It's like
Yeah,
a positive reinforcement instead of like, you're gonna be punished if you don't help. Like
yeah, yeah.
um, you do need to have good rally and garrison captain then in that
Oh,
case
absolutely.
to be able to pull that off. I do want to ask you some more game related questions.
Please, please.
So kind of like diverting a little bit from I guess you could say alliance structures and whatnot. So
Sure.
um, this is actually something I've been wondering for a long time. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to figure out how this really works. But the general rule of thumb with Doomsday is range beats infantry, infantry beats rider, and rider beats range, right? But do you
Yeah.
know what is there like a specific percentage advantage that they have over the other that has been
It
clearly documented?
As far as I knew, it was the five. I think it was the 5% advantage rule that it followed. It's similar to because what ends up happening, like if you have May, I believe it is, or can't remember who some of the other ones are, but yeah, like some of the heroes that you can see, like they have like a 5% advantage or whatever over the other ones. Some of the other games that we do play or have played, I can't remember if they had it in Rise of Kingdoms or if it was State of Survival, which one of those. I've played these games for like 10 years, and it seems like there's always been a universal 5% rule that has kind of applied to say that one troop has a 5% advantage over another, like naturally, and then everything else outside of that is just kind of your own stats. So I've kind of looked at it as the 5% rule. To say if that's true or not is very hard. At one point in time, I feel like we could have figured it out before Armaments and before everything came out. But I think at that point in time, the game was so basic, and it was just so like really, if you're fighting somebody, the way to determine how strong they were was if they had all white parts and how many troops they had, because that was the only factors, right? So
Right.
maybe at that point in time would have been easier to figure out. But now with so many other factors like beasts, armaments, garages, lethality, all the rest of those things, like I think that there's too many factors to try to figure out, like, or break down the equation to try to figure that part
Oh man, the ship has sailed. Forgot.
out.
All right. So I guess 5%, is that a big difference though, if you're looking at it from um
It would be the equivalent of you having like a bonus 5% red squad damage hone is kind of the best way to put that into like a perspective. So it can be impactful, yes. I think it's more of like a multiple, of like a force multiplier, where like if you're significantly stronger than your opponent and you're going ranged into like an infantry garrison, like let's just say that they're off their knockers and they're using a thunder garrison and you're using like a bard Ethan or whatever it may be, right? And you clearly have like a firepower advantage, a garage advantage, everything there. um that 5% could be a force multiplier where instead of killing 100,000 troops on a skill use, maybe you're killing 105,000, maybe it's closer to 110, whatever it may be. But at the lower range numbers, like if you're evenly matched and you're trading, like they have a very strong defense, you have a strong offense, but it kind of neutrals out, and maybe you're only getting 3,000 kills per skill use. Like if you think about it, a 5% advantage at that point is only 1,500 troops bonus, and that's less than like typically what your typical basic or counterattack does on a rally. So I wouldn't say that I would say that you see that more if you are a flank rally, or if you again are just significantly stronger than your opponent. But the closer the gap, the less you would see it, I would say.
really, that's interesting. I thought it would be like the difference maker if you were, if all things were equal kind of deal, but I guess not.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, cool. This question is someone asked me to ask you this
sure.
because they heard you say this before, and I guess they want clarification. So someone have said heard you say build everything defense for infantry so you don't melt. Is this true, or like do you still need to balance it with attack because of what do you call that thing again? Diminishing returns. So
Diminishing returns.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this? Because they said this is your exact statement.
Sure, sure. It is an exact statement. It's taken out of context, though. I know
Okay.
exactly. I know exactly when I state this and why. So the reason why I state that is that typically, like, if you're somebody that's using 5 marches in the field, right? Like, you don't need to focus on defense because obviously, like, you don't want if you're playing 5 marches against one and you're flanking and you're not, funneling at least some into attack, you're kind of you're shooting yourself in the foot, right? The same thing if you're rallying. Unless you're a tank rally, there's no real point to build defense. I think that if you're a tank rally, building defense is great. However, let's get to the context of why I said it. So the reason why I did say it is because if you go into your barracks, right? If I pull up the infantry barracks, I click on the T6 troop and I click the I button, you'll see all of the base stats of a troop, right? And everything that you get in terms of a stat is a multiplier of that base value. So every plus attack percentage, plus defense percentage, plus lethality, firepower, everything like that is all multiplying against that base stat. And so, if you're somebody that if you open up a combat report and go to the battle stats and you have 400% or plus 400% infantry attack, now you can just go into your barracks, see, oh, I have a 275 or 300, whatever it is. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but a 300 as a base stat, and I have plus 400 attack. Then in your mind, okay, I have, 300 plus 400% of that. So I'm actually at like 1,500 attack. Like if you were to take the percentage and put it into a flat number. The reason why I say that it's better to focus on defense for infantry or again, expanding the context out here, I would typically say, invest into attack is range, is that ranged has 20% higher of a base value attack than infantry. Infantry has a 20% higher base defense than range, that kind of a thing, right? And
Right.
so if I'm going off of a percentage basis, and I covered this in one of my videos, if you go off of the base stat of a troop, and like let's say that I have to choose as range between a plus 5% ranged attack hone or a plus 5 ranged defense hone, red hone, I'm probably going to lean more towards the attack, because if that 5% goes against the base number, I'm going to get a lot more value out of that multiplier against attack than I will defense. And so for your typical infantry player, again, like part of this comes with the understanding, like, hey, if I'm playing infantry, I mentally know I'm not going to be dealing as much skill damage or attack. I'm not going to be dealing as much damage as a typical ranged player or rider player. And that's not all based on stats. A lot of that has to do with the heroes, right? And just the way that their skills are set up. You just typically have more skill damage and more attack and more offensive capabilities on a ranged hero or a rider hero than you typically see on an infantry hero. And so the reason why I kind of talk to the stats is that let the heroes kind of control like the play value or like the play style of like your field play or however you're going to play this march. Just kind of build your stats around the actual one thing that like is static this whole time, which is just the base value of the troop itself. Then like I said, if you're playing garrison, if you're playing a tank rally, if you want to play a rally and you want to tank a counter rally, whatever it may be, like then it's kind of based on like what heroes you're using, and are those good for rallies, are those good for garrisons, that kind of a thing. But your actual stats are more optimized towards that base value.
Give me a second. I'm digesting what you're saying. There's a lot there.
Yeah, it is a lot. No, it
Yeah.
absolutely is a lot.
Yeah. Um, okay. The one thing that I was a little bit confused when you were
Sure.
explaining this is you were talking about the base value, right? Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example,
Mm-hmm.
infantry has a higher defensive base
Yep. Yep.
value than range does, and range has a higher attack
Attack. Yeah.
um, base value. And then basically, when you get a buff, then it's just a multiplier of that base value, right? So
Yep. Yep.
but then if you take into account the diminishing returns rule, then ultimately you want to focus more on the one that you have a lower base value on, just so because it's a more, I guess, bang for your buck. But then,
Ye- ye-
but then you get less also of the actual like raw number, you know?
So it's kind of two-parted, right? So with diminishing value or diminishing returns, yes, the higher that you roll a stat, like the more percentage or higher percentage gain value I have, the less I'm actually getting like in return, basically. And
Right.
again, I've charted that in one of my videos. But then there's a second part to the equation as well, where just because instead of like if I get plus 5% attack towards like say ranged, right? And based on diminishing returns, I'm not getting a true plus 5% value. I'm really getting like say like a plus 4.75%, right? Like that's where you see diminishing returns.
Right.
However, if that plus 4.75 multiplier against the base attack of range still equates to more of a gain than say plus 5% defense where you have less or attack or I'm sorry, yeah, defense where it's less of a diminishing return, but the base value is lower, you may still end up getting more of a return focusing on attack until you hit a certain threshold. Is kind of what I'm getting at. So where let me, and I'm pulling up the game actually as I speak here. So when I go to range and I go look at T6, the base attack of a T6 range troop is 254. The base defense of a T6 range troop is actually 207, right? So it's 20% higher on attack than their defense. So even though you have a bit of a diminishing return there, especially as you go higher, 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 you may still be getting more of a return going into attack and pumping into that than it would be pumping into defense. And again, it'll stay that way until you hit a certain threshold where then it makes more sense to do defense. At the same time, it's not to take the approach where you just stay like oblivious or ignorant to the fact where if you dump full into attack and you're just a glass cannon, you're going to melt. Then it becomes, am I out trading my opponent to where, yes, I'm taking a lot of damage, but I'm dealing a lot more? And in a lot of cases, that's not the sense, because if they build defense, if they build block, if they build protection, then they're mitigating a lot of your damage and bringing that down. So the other side of that equation is that people are like, oh, like when you look at like squad damage reduction and stuff like that, like why is that skill important? squad damage reduction and stuff is more important the stronger that your opponent is. If your opponent, say, is dealing 1,000 damage to you and you have like let's say 25% squad damage reduction, then you're bringing that 1,000 damage down to 750. Now let's say your opponent is dealing 10,000 damage and you have the same 25% squad damage reduction. Now instead of blocking 250 damage, you're blocking 2,500 damage. So it's you see how it blocks a lot more, and so it becomes very effective at that point, and your number itself didn't change. So defense, squad damage reduction, block, protection, those types of things, it becomes more and more important the stronger that your opponent is that you're fighting. And in a lot of cases, I get questions about like, oh, like why did my garrison get blown up? And you're taking a look at like Apex, where these people have 5,000 plus firepower, or 500% plus in their attack, or 1,000 plus on lethality and stuff. If you don't have something to mitigate that damage, you eat large amounts raw of it, really. And then the more defense or block or squad damage reduction that you take, you're benefiting a large sum because their damage is much higher. So where their damage is much higher, every bit of damage reduction that you get just becomes that much more effective.
Right. Yeah, I've always have thought that damage reduction was the most important of all the
Oh yeah, yeah.
attributes, just from based on the description that you mentioned. But I am also curious. You were talking about the threshold, right? So
Mm-hmm.
from what I've heard from discussing with other players, they said that
Yeah.
around 350% buff is the threshold when the diminishing return starts kicking in. What are your thoughts
Mm-hmm.
on that? Do you think it's actually 350% or it depends on other variables?
I think it depends on other variables, right? Because again, this is kind of why I was referencing heroes. A lot of it depends on the hero and the role that you're playing. Where, like, again, let's say, for example, you're playing somebody that is on, like on Garrison. Typically on Garrison, what you'll see, like, if you're using a Riven, you get like 40% plus defense. If you're on Rally, you're playing with Stella, and you might have 60% plus attack, that kind of a thing. There's a large sum of stats that you get, whether it be from talents or from passive skills or active skills on heroes, depending on the role that you're playing in. And with rallies, you'll see a lot more attack. With garrisons, you'll see a lot more defense or squad damage reduction or skill damage reduction, that kind of a thing. So again, it's not static, which becomes a big part of the complication part and a big part of the complexity, which is also why I think it's like one of the actual most enjoyable pieces of the game is that I can sit here and have a conversation to three people that play infantry, and the stat priority that I tell them to take is completely different because one of them is a rally player, one's a garrison player, one's a field player, that kind of thing. So I think a lot of it just depends on the hero that you're using. Another one being obviously like your budget. Another one also being, and this is actually the first question that I ask people when they ask me to take a look at their accounts and tell them like what I recommend is what's your average G bracket. Send me some report. Like if you're asking me, like what should I build or what should I do when we're in the middle of AR. First thing I'm going to tell you to do is go into the field, hit some of their strongest players, hit some of their average players, and hit some of their weakest players. Then send me the report of all of that. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at their firepower, or I'm sorry, their lethality and their firepower and those types of things, their block, and see what the average is. Because if you're out in say the boonies at G200 and the average firepower that you see is maybe 400 or 500 max, then you know that really you don't need probably more than like 250 or 350 firepower to be very effective out there. As opposed to if you're fighting an Apex and the average firepower is like 750, well, now we need to get your firepower up to a certain threshold before we start focusing on like attack and defense and that kind of a thing. So I think there's a lot more factors there than to be able to just say like this is what's best for all or the threshold is this.
Gotcha. So there's no evergreen like, oh, 350%, use that number figure,
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good to know. Um, Someone has this question. I don't know if you want to
Please, no, hit
take this
me with
one.
it.
It's
Anything, let's go.
okay. Someone's asked, what's more influential, beast level or chips?
Ooh, I would say chips. I would say chips. I think that you need to get your beast level up to a certain point. You obviously don't want to be rallying like a level one beast, right? That's
Right.
pretty obvious. But
No,
I think
no.
it's
Why is
oh
that
the
working? You don't see that. I
yeah.
saw you only need chips.
No. I obviously like you want to have your beast levels up and stuff. I think that more like in terms of like importance, I would say that your core what is that one called? It's like the core core potential. Sorry, the core potential side of things. I would say that your core potential is like one of the most important ones because you get so much stat gains from that. However, typically it does cost you money unless you're saving up for a long time to get that up. Your core potential and your tier is typically your two most important factors on how effective a beast is going to get. more so, I would probably say your tier actually. So in order, I would say tier of your beast, then your core potential, then your chips, then your actual level itself. And this is off the expectation that it's very easy to level a beast to at least level 50. After that, then it takes a while to actually like save up. And then especially once you get up into like the level like 70s plus, it takes a long time if you're a free to play player to just get like even one level, right?
Right.
So I would say that yeah, like your level is least important after you're around like level 50. Tier wise, you want to go obviously for the gold beast if you can. And I would say like use like a max purple beast. Like if I'm talking to someone that's asking about pangos, I'll tell them to use your maxed out purple pango until your gold pango is at least tier 6, because there's certain like power spikes that you get at certain tiers, and I believe it's tier 6 is like one of the most important ones, based on like how much damage it does. So tier 6, that's the level being level 50. Your core potential you want to try to max out as soon as you possibly can, and then with chips, unless you're getting like straight gold chips or OC chips, where like every single level of an OC chip on like your health gives you like 5,000 health, or like a large sum of attack and stuff, then the blue chips and the purple chips are much less in value as opposed to that. So that's where they become far less influential. If it's a new whale that's talking to ask like, hey, like I'm just starting out, but I'm about to dump a crap ton of money into this game, like what should I dump into first? Then at that point, I would say like, hey, yeah, chase the OC chips, chase the gold chips, and that kind of a thing, because every rank that you get in those is like a large sum of stat gained again, as opposed to like the purple chips or blue ones.
Yeah, those OC chips are insane because I haven't really seen them being a menace at Fearless Warzone until this island we're doing right now. And there's one guy that is our ally, in a coalition, and
Mm-hmm,
it's like a
mm-hmm.
chasey gears. And then the opponent is using infantry rally with Stella and Bodala, and we were looking at the reports, and it was the beast with the OC chips that was murdering him. So I'm quite for someone that plays in Fearless Warzone when beast is not a huge issue yet, and I'm seeing it to become like a big difference maker. It's quite shocking actually.
Yeah, as someone that has built out Beast quite a bit, and gets that question a lot about Beast, and I put this a lot in the official Discord to talk about it too. People have asked like how influential are Beasts, and like like what would you say it is? As someone that's a Garrison main player, in terms of my Garrison reports for my overall damage output and how good my trades are, investing into Beast was the best thing I ever did, because since the time the Beasts have come out, just through OC chips and having a Pango that is currently 7.3 mil, my Garrison reports have increased in terms of like my damage output by at least 25%, like numerically, like from what we've measured. It's a very large sum. If you fight somebody that has not invested into chips, which we don't find nearly as often now, earlier into the Beasts that did happen because I invested very early in them. Earlier on, like my Pango, I have reports where in 1 second the Pango, through triggering combos and counters and crits all in 1 second. In the 1 second, my Stella might kill 34,000 troops with her rage skill, but then the Pango would kill 114,000. So it's a very large gap if you're fighting someone that isn't beast built, and which raises kind of another point that I want to bring up. I know that this wasn't directly asked, but I get asked this question a lot when people say like, "Hey, like why should I invest in the beast as a Garrison or Rally player?" If you are not investing in it, you are taking a large sum of raw damage. If you are investing in it and you're trading even with your enemy because they have a strong beast as well, that's perfectly fine, and you should actually chop that up as a win. A lot of people don't chop that up as a win. I've actually had this as critique where people say, well, oh, if I have a strong beast and they have a strong beast, and it's not killing anything, or it's only killing like 800 troops, what's the point? Well, that is the point, is that you've nullified them. Instead of killing 30, 40, 50,000 of your troops per 6 seconds, or every 6 seconds, you've nullified it down to 800. That's a huge win. Anybody like yourself would know that as well. So yeah, if you're a Garrison or a rally leader, I would say that beasts are one of your best investments to make for sure.
Gotcha. Okay, I figured as much. This actually goes next to the next question that someone wants me to ask you.
Okay.
They wanted to ask about water beasts specifically, but I'm just gonna make it even more open because I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
what you're gonna say with this. So their question is, which water beast pairings are the best for infantry, or you could say for other players in general? It doesn't have to be infantry; it could be range or riders.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what do you think are the best beast pairs just based on your experience?
Sure. So obviously, right off the bat, the first thing that we'll address is that there is no correlation between troop type and beast type, right? The only real correlation that you have there is the behavior of your march with that beast itself. So if I'm in the field and I have five marches swarming one, and that one march is fighting me back, it's targeting one of my marches. So the one march that's targeting theirs and their march is targeting mine, that march with the troops and everything, they're going to be dealing basic attack damage, counterattack damage, and skill damage. The other four marches that are hitting the enemy march that aren't being targeted, they're dealing basic attack damage, but they're not dealing counterattack damage because they're not taking basic attacks back, but then they're dealing skill damage as well. So, with that in mind, if you are a field player, you don't want to focus on counter as one of your stats. You really only want to focus on counter if you are a tank rally or if you are a garrison player. So that applies to both your homes and then also your beast behaviors. So if you have a beast, so for example, if you're putting a beast on your support, if that support beast, when you're looking at the support skills, it says that the active skill is triggered off of a counter attack, you can already expect that it's not going to trigger much in the field because you have to have them targeting you in order with their beast in order to then be able to use that, right, or use it efficiently or effectively. So I wouldn't focus on any beasts that have counter in the field. So that's typically like your grass ones, which I know we're talking about water, but just getting that out of the way. Now, in terms of like what beasts to use, your Otachis are your Itachi's the best support beast that you can get in the game, but I know that that costed money and is expensive, so that doesn't apply to everybody.
Can I cut
If
you off
you're,
for a second?
yeah,
So Otachi is no longer available. So I guess
yeah,
I
yeah, that's what I mean. Like you either have it or you don't. Is my point. Like if
right.
you have Otachi, that's the best one. But
Okay.
moving beyond that, the jellyfish, the golden jellyfish that you can get from like the wasteland exploration and all that stuff with those chests and crates. I know that that's one that takes longer to get. I myself don't have that many copies of it, but just like when you're looking at it on paper, is one of the best beasts to use. And that's because its active skill as support or anything triggers off of both combos and crits. So it's just very effective because of how much it can attack. Your sabers and your rhinos are also very solid to use. Reason for that is that it's more of one of your economic choices. So they deal high crit chance, they have high crit damage, that kind of a thing. But you also get a lot of copies of them just by doing the normal beast events and playing the game itself. You can get a lot of copies of those. And again, where your beast tier is like one of your more important factors, that plays into it. Like if you can get one of those maxed really quick, just off the simple fact of playing the game, that's going to be one of your best investments. And then yeah, again for water, it's mostly just like the other gold jellyfish, and or I'm sorry, the gold crab, and then yeah, I think that'd pretty much be it. Like honestly, like you can't go wrong with the beasts in terms of like field play and utilizing your beasts and stuff, unless like you're somebody that again focuses on like the counter beasts, like the grass type ones, and you're in the field and you're like, hey, why is my beast dealing half as much damage? And it's because you're trying to proc off of counter instead of off of a combo or crit, which is always happening, no matter whether you're being targeted or not. That's honestly the way that it is. Other than that, it's very marginal.
Gotcha. So the grass is better suited for garrison players, and this one is kind of interesting though. Like the Pango, for example, has a lot of counter attack, right? But they also
Mm-hmm.
have damage reduction that they provide
Yep.
to the hero. So that's kind of like in a weird contradictory area, right? Because you do want damage reduction in the field also because you're slugging and hitting each other, right,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Sure.
So what are your thoughts on that? Because it kind of contradicts like, oh, don't have counter damage on the field as much, but then you also want the damage reduction, you know?
Sure. Sure. I would say that the channel in the official Doomsday Discord that I get tagged in the most is probably the Beast channel, and because it's because there's a lot of questions that come around it. So I'll just kind of answer this the same way that I typically do for anybody that asks it.
Sure.
The physical beasts themselves, being the bull or the pango, if you are a garrison or rally player, and that's not even to say that you're a garrison or rally main, if at any point of time you ever stand a chance to rally or garrison, you need to have a pango or a bull built out. You need to have a bull for rallies. You need to have a pango for garrisons. And it's simply because they're very effective in field still. You don't really miss out on too much. Yes, you might miss out on half a skill or you might miss out on one skill or whatever have you in the field, but no big deal. Um, But the gain that you get from it is honestly the biggest part. It's that up to 400% stat bonus that you obtain when you max them out, up to that point, on Pango or on Bull for their attack and their defense and such, which really is the biggest difference. Because if you're not a spend, like let's say that you're like a low to mid spender and you're fighting somebody that's a low to mid spender and they're rallying with say a Saber and a Rhino or whatever have you, and their attack and their defense on their beast is, and I'm pulling it up here, like let's say it's maxed out at like 8,000 or whatever have you. So they're coming at you with 8,000 attack, 8,000 defense on their beast. You could be half of that, right? Like you could have a half built Pango that only has 4,000 attack and 4,000 defense. But because you have, 253, like on the low end, 250 or up to 400% as a stat boost, now all of a sudden, on that garrison or on that rally, even though they have 8,000 on paper and you have 4,000, you're actually effectively up at 9,000 or up to even 16,000 on your stats, just simply because you're using a beast that is tailored for that bonus in rally or garrison. So I would say that, like, and I say this to all players, if you're a field player, don't worry too much about the beast that you're using. Just keep that counter side in mind. But if you're somebody that ever rallies or ever garrisons at all, you need to have a Pango or a Bull. Otherwise, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot like tenfold.
Okay, that's awesome. Actually, that benefits me too because I do rally in Garrison. So in Fearless, I wouldn't not be able to do it in Elite. Um, cool. Quick question, man. How are you for time? I don't want to, like.
Oh, yeah, I'm here as long as you need me, man. Like I said, whatever you need.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because I was asking, like I'm like, oh, we have helipad raid, right, for island raids. I was
Oh,
seeing
yeah, yeah, don't worry.
if
Yeah,
you're
we're on the
cool.
opposite. No, we're on the opposite side of the map. It'll take us another whole day to get there. So
Okay, okay, gotcha. Okay.
yeah,
Um,
we're good.
question that someone has for infantry players specifically. I think I'm getting a lot of questions for infantry because you are infantry main.
Sure,
Or I
sure.
think also like, is it like 50% of the player base are infantry players or something?
It definitely seems like it when you're looking at like competition and stuff. So
Yeah,
that would make sense.
yeah. Okay, so the person asked, if you're a low spend or higher player, would you say that Boyd and Riven mandatory heroes for you to get and develop?
Um, okay, so like let's look at it from again the perspective of roles. If you are a garrison player, Boyd is absolutely necessary. You need to have them. Riven, not so much. And I'll add to that with just one sentence. If you are a garrison and you're in a scenario where you are garrisoning against multi rallies or swarms, Boyd Stella is your best choice. If you are a garrison and you're only garrisoning against a single rally and maybe you have field control or they're not threatening with the presence of swarming, Boyd Riven trades much better. So that those are the two scenarios that you would use Boyd and Riven or Boyd and Stella basically. So that's answering that part. If you're a garrison, Boyd is absolutely 100% necessary. He has proven himself time and time again. Based on the verbiage, you would assume that maybe he only can have one shield or two shields, when in fact actually all three shields works in garrison. On rally, Boyd is terrible. None of his skills are procking. None of his shields proc. Don't even think about it. In the field, when you
Sorry,
read
sorry,
hidden,
sorry, man. Can you
oh,
say
go
that
ahead.
again?
Yeah, so Boyd on rallies,
Uh-huh.
none of his like shields proc.
Really?
Um, yeah. Like when you look at it, when you looked at a rally report, and you go into like the combat log, and you can see all the skills that trigger on the left hand side. Like only two out of all five of his skills actually proc, and the ones that do are only like half procking. So yeah, it's not Boyd is not effective on rallies at all. In the field, a lot of people took a look at Boyd's fourth skill, his kinetic energy recovery. I'm looking at it here. So that's the one where when not in a rally increases Boyd Warden's rage recovery speed by 30% and gains a shield for 3 seconds every two skills that he uses. Now, some people kind of had a question of, okay, is it just the shield that you get for 3 seconds? Is that rage recovery up all the time? Because if it is, then that's amazing. Come to find out, no, the rage recovery only lasts for 3 seconds as well, and that it takes two skills or two skill uses in order to actually get that proc. So you can average it out to about every 12 seconds. So 12 seconds to trigger it, 3 seconds to use it. It's actually a lot less effective than it really looks like on paper. So in field, Boyd isn't going to be your first choice either. So Garrison, Boyd, yes. Riven, you can use it on Garrison, especially in like the lower G brackets now. It seems like Boyd Stella just kind of outperforms again, unless you're just taking on a single rally. Boyd Riven does really well. Yeah, that's honestly probably the best way to answer that.
That's interesting. I always thought that Boyd and Aileen together would be amazing in the field, just from that second skill that Boyd has that really buffs up your skill damage. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so you would actually not say that Boyd is. the first choice?
Boyd, no, I would say that Boyd isn't your first choice, just simply because again, before we actually had the chance to use Boyd, everybody saw that 30% rage recovery. We're like, oh my god, you're going to be able to trigger your rage skills every like four
Right.
seconds now instead of every 6 seconds. That would have been amazing. If you set that aside and you were just strictly looking for something that deals a large amount of damage, then yes, Boyd and Eileen would do really well because especially if you have Eileen awakened and you're always dealing AoE as opposed to needing to be like less than 50% or whatever it is on your squad march,
Right.
then yes, that bonus damage, that bonus skill damage can be there. It can do well also, but at the same time too, if you say something like a Boyd Marco, just on the flip side of things, and you get targeted, their HP gets cut by half. Now that skill damage is doing so much more damage, as if it's inflated by bonus skill damage also and stuff. So I would say that I like something like Eileen has a lot of flexibility, but just speaking to the question about like should you go directly for Boyd, yes, if you're Garrison, if you're Field, focus on something like Eileen first, and then maybe turn around and get it.
Okay, so if you're doing field, then I
If
Eileen,
you're doing Field, Eileen is your number one choice right now as an infantry player by far, and it's not even close.
but the pair would then be Miyamoto then or Boyd as a
You
second.
could do Miyamoto like a double AOE is solid. Plus he gives like a flat or he gives like a high percentage of attack also. I think it's like 40% attack or whatever. Then he also gives like the flat 12% bonus too. And all of that is going to inflate her damage also and her high attack.
Okay.
And I think that like one of the best parts about those two is they both give high infantry attack. And so where they're both dealing AOE, you just have a murderous AOE march at that point.
That you're referring to Boyd Mia, right?
Yeah. No, no, no. Sorry. Eileen and Mia.
Okay. Oh, Aileen and Mia. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
so so Aileen and Mia would be a better option then for infantry marches, as opposed to Boyd and Aileen together. They would be
Yeah.
damage
Yeah.
essentially.
Eileen and Miyamoto would probably be one of your highest damage outputting marches, especially because they're AoE and they have high attack.
Okay, cool. That's super interesting. Let me just s- s-
No, please write it down, put it in your next video, do what you got to do, try it out.
I'll
Well,
follow.
I use Eileen. I actually rally with Stella and Eileen now.
Oh, is it good? Is that good?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 The high
Yeah.
attack is insane, and then the fact that it's like it can do AOE. A lot of times it will either hit counter marches or counter rallies or reinforcing marches, or I'll especially use it if they're trying to play to protect the tower. It'll do AOE, right? So that kind of a
I'll have to make a video out of it and pretend I came up with it. Just like
thing.
other
By all means, I don't care.
like other YouTubers. Other YouTubers do. I just kidding. I'm just starting
Oh
shit,
God,
I'm just
throw in
starting shit.
shade. Throw in shade.
Yeah, I'm just starting shit. But like, anyways. Um, so the Stella and Aileen rally specifically, is there like a specific scenario where that would be best to use? Because I remember we had a chat
Yeah,
in the game. You said that Stella and Marco is the best
yeah,
combination.
yeah.
So which specific scenario would you say that Stella and Aileen would be the superior choice?
Sure, sure. I like Stella Marco a lot because Stella gets the shields and stuff while she's on rallies. Obviously,
Yeah,
she does a high amount of attack damage, and then also I'm again typically this is just from my perspective. I'm a tank infantry rally player, so if I'm playing an AR, I'm the rally that hits first. Then we have a flank rider or a flank range rallies going in. It's the second and third. I use Stella Marco for one because the 47% HP reduction is going to cut and make the second and third rallies just deal an insanely higher amount of damage, especially if they're using something like say Rubina or Ethan or Bard, that kind of a thing. So
right.
it's mostly to benefit them. The other side of things is that Stella's already getting a high amount of damage reduction, whether it be through her shields or through the up to 40% basic attack damage reduction that she gets some more will, that kind of a thing. And then my armaments, I mean, I have 1200 block, 50% defense, that kind of like it all plays to that, right? So it enables the Stella Marco the best for like the group scenarios, right? Where you have a second or third rally. Stella Eileen works really well on the single rallies, where if you're rallying a tower, rather than going like a Stella and Marco, where yes, you're cutting down the HP, you can break in that kind of thing, but there's not much burst damage to it because he doesn't really offer any of those other influential beneficial stats to the rally other than the HP cut, which is his main advantage, right? That you're looking at. That's great, but again, it doesn't really offer that burst factor. The Stella and Eileen, where Eileen is bringing a high amount of attack to the rally as well, she's bringing the AOE factor, that kind of a thing. You get a little bit more burst to your damage on it. So where if you're swarming a tower and you really just need that oomph. Is the best way to put it, from your rally to deal that compounded bonus damage. It does really well. Or again, like I said, if they're playing around the tower and they're just trying to hit your reinforcing marches, well, you can kind of diminish that, or at the very least, put a punish to them on it by having something that's dealing AoE damage as well. Where you might see you might say, oh, throw Miyamoto in there. It's not nearly as effective, right? And I know that you're not really a Miyamoto fan,
Yes.
so something like Eileen does really well because it'll effectively do the same thing that you're looking for it to do, but then it also offers a lot of benefits to the rally that same Marco doesn't.
That's
So
right.
yeah.
You heard it here, folks. Miyamoto fucking sucks. Anyways, no, anyway,
I can tell you other reasons why they aren't talked about, but
yeah. But anyways, okay, cool, man. That's really awesome to hear that Stella and Aileen is great for single rally, while Stella and Marco is better for the group scenario. You mentioned Boyd and Marco earlier. In what situation would you pair that up? Would that be like field? Would that be for garrison? Like, how would you? Because you said that that's a thing. Like, it's utilized in some certain scenarios.
it becomes one of those things where it's just like, if you have like, so I know a lot of players that have, like, even like myself, where you just have like one really really good armament set, and that's just like your main damage set or whatever have you.
Right.
um if you get put into a scenario where maybe the enemy team doesn't have like a murder ball, but there might be one player with like three marches in the field, whatever it is, you can send, a Boyd Marco out there as like one of your main marches. And you can also do this in murder balls, where you're out there, the Boyd is using his skill damage. He has a 35% skill damage bonus. That also applies to Marco. Marco gives the actual buffs in the field of like the move speed, the attack and stuff, because you're in the field. So it's all kind of benefiting for your damage output. But then the minute that they turn to target you, as long as like you keep like your optimization mode on high, and you can see which marches are targeting you, because they're targeting you and getting that 45% or almost 50%, 47% HP cut from the Marco, you can then just automatically turn on them and target them, especially if they're like a rider march, like a Stella or a Bella or something like that. Just turn and automatically target them. Their HP cut, you have a 35% skill damage boost, you have a high skill damage, you have shields and stuff procking. You can just kind of eat the damage and just kind of melt them in return. So it just becomes like a juggernaut march almost.
Oh, I see. So this is specifically for a murder ball, like a scenario.
Yeah, you do it in murder balls. I've done it where, like, if there's just like a player in the field that is like trying to solo out and trying to get points or something like that, you can go after them and you can just eat their marches with the shields that you have, and then just isolate them down one by one by one, because you're nuking them with that bonus skill damage and stuff. And yeah, you can go through some of those three marches with one, fairly easily and stuff.
So
So yeah.
so this is like a hedgehog strategy, kind of like you're getting people,
Yeah,
they're
exactly,
getting you to
exactly.
attack you to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see, gotcha. You're
Yeah,
just are you
but you're
luring?
not nearly as punished. Like, it's like, so some people will try to use Stella in the field, right? Which just doesn't make sense, because you have to get targeted in order to have the effectiveness of War Will and all her counter damage and stuff.
Right.
Yes, you have the part of Marco where it's like you have to be attacked to get that HP cut.
Yeah.
But even though you're not being targeted, you're outputting a lot of damage with the bonus skill damage of Void and stuff, and you're also not eating a lot of damage on the counter attacks that they're giving, because you have all those shields procking. So you're really just sitting there just giving out free damage. Then when they turn and target you, now you actually have the advantage of the Marco side. I've also seen where people will use Boyd and LeBlanc, because he'll also offer that same HP cut reduction as well that I'm talking about, without the requirement of being targeted. But not nearly as many people that I've seen at least have LeBlanc awakened yet. So a pair of Boyd and Marco, or Boyd and LeBlanc, would be good, because that HP cut plays very well into the bonus skill damage.
Gotcha. I love Claude. He's so broken.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I'm cheat. Like when he first came out, I got him right away, and I started leveling up his first two skill. And yeah, man, like I got so much points in War Meets War. It was the first time ever, because I'm range main. I usually get killed in field, and suddenly I had him in my squad, and I wasn't
Uh-huh.
dying. You know?
So I'll give you a little insider secret here.
Sure.
It's already been reported to IGG, but it's who knows when they'll ever fix it. Um, if you have LeBlanc and you have him awakened, his skill that reduces the enemy HP and move speed.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. Um, it's his lingering miasma or whatever it is, but then it turns into decay and wither. So it's lingering miasma, or however you pronounce it, and then turns into decay and wither on awakening. It's his second skill. If you have an awakened Claude and you have an alliance member that does not have an awakened Claude, the nice thing about it is that those skills are technically called two different things. Because of that, if you both target the same march or are around the same enemy marches, they will double stack the HP reduction and the slow move speed slow, and you can effectively make the enemy move at 20% move speed or have 80% HP cut. And this is proven in reports to be seen as well.
Holy shit. Wait, 80% HP cut and 25% movement speed reduction?
No, they will move at 25% move speed. So the travel speed reduction at max level goes to 40% and the HP cut goes to 30%. And then when it's awakened, it goes to 35% HP cut, but stays at 40% move speed. So
Yeah,
if you have someone that has the skill awakened and it's called something else, and
right.
you're someone that has the skill max but not awakened on the hero, they're called two different things. So they actually show up as two separate lines in a combat log. And the
Yeah,
way that the game works is that if you have the same skill procking on someone, instead of double stacking, it'll just reset the timer. But
yeah.
because they're called two different things, it's double stacking. So they move with 80% move speed reduction and 65% HP cut.
Holy shit. Okay, let me write this down.
Yeah.
65%
HP reduction and
HP cut.
80% move speed reduction. Yep. And when you look on a combat report, it'll say decay and wither, and then have the debuff, and then it'll say the what's it called, the lingering miasma, and then have the same debuff as well, both in the same second or whatever.
You know what's funny is I'm trying to get my alliance to become whale killers. That's what we were trying. That's kind of
That's how
like,
you would do it. Yeah, that's how you
yeah.
would do
And
it.
then I told them like, okay, guys, like I think my perspective in the current state of the game right now, because like a few months ago, I was thinking like we were in the age of writers. That's what I was thinking like a
Oh
few
yeah,
months
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Now I feel like we're in the age of debuff and buffers.
Uh huh. For sure.
Just like I was watching like what do you call it? Like with rallies, for example, like a lot of people are using Stella and Claude also for rallies, right?
Yep.
Especially if it's like Archipelago, right? There's triple rallies happening and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So um, like I didn't do this on purpose in the sense like, oh, okay, you know, I know all this insider tricks that you kind of just mentioned to me, but I was kind of thinking that just from a logical perspective, if you're fighting whales, the best way to defeat them, if you don't have the proper armaments or whatever, is just to debuff them. Because I think you get the best bang for your buck just debuffing strong players. Um,
Yeah.
so I actually got all my members to get Claude. Uh, so I'm gonna definitely be trying this. I have Claude Awaken. I awaken him right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm quite excited now to try out what you just said, where you have a Claude that's awakened versus a Claude that's not awakened, because the that second skill, Lingering Miasma, is called something
Yeah.
else when awakened, right? So then,
Yeah.
so
Death and decay when awakened. Yeah.
okay. So, and would you say that this would have a huge effect then?
It's a very massive effect. Just as someone that plays in the upper bracket,
Mhm.
you're absolutely correct. Where again, this kind of applies earlier, where it's like if your enemy is dealing more damage, damage reduction is very important. It's the
Right,
same thing. If your enemy is a whale and they have 400% stats or 400% buff on attack and defense, whatever have you,
right,
they may be up at like 12,000. But if you have someone like a Lee or like I know that Lee's like irrelevant, but it's actually relevant when you fight whales. A Claude, any of those things that does a percentage based debuff, you're effectively taking that huge number that they have, and because it's so high from their stat bonuses,
right,
the debuff is just that much stronger and amplified against them, especially when it comes to HP cuts, right? Where if the enemy HP pool is say like 1,000, right? Like if anybody that's played any form of like an RPG or an MMO, like what health pools are. World of Warcraft, Diablo, anything like that. Oh, I have 10,000 health, whatever, before I die. If you
right,
have 10,000 health before you die, and someone cuts your HP by 60%, now all of a sudden it only takes 4,000 HP for you to die. And anybody that's played again any MMO or RPG knows how impactful that actually is. Like if half of your HP pool is all of a sudden gone before you die, that's a huge thing. And so you could be fighting a whale, and because it takes half as much time to send one of their troops to the hospital or kill it, effectively it doesn't matter how much defense they have, you've kind of done your job. That's why HP is so important. That's also why HP reduction is so important.
right. It's like that skill. I don't know if you play Diablo 2, like the sorcerer, they
Oh
have
yeah, yeah,
static is what it's called, static.
yeah.
And then you spam that on like the cows or whatever, and then you
Yeah.
finish them off with the blizzard orb thing or
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Always
Okay.
talented.
So
Blast from the past.
yeah, exactly. Did you what was I gonna say here? So would you say then Lee is making a comeback then, especially if you're fighting whales, because of how much impact he has, the stronger the player is essentially, you know? compared to like, or not?
It's kind of hard to say, right? It's very situational. Like if you are a whale for your team, I
Yeah,
wouldn't expect you to use Lee, right? You want to just maximize your damage output. That makes the most sense.
right.
But if you're somebody in the murder ball with your team, because odds are, if you're playing in Apex or something like that, where there are a lot of murder balls, or I've seen murder balls in Elite and Fearless as well. But if you're playing and targeting someone that has players like that, and you're say someone that's just more of a field support player for your team, you're not the strongest player there. You're not the weakest either, but you're there to support. You could be using like a Bianca to buff ally squads, a LeBlanc or a Claude. But yeah, at the same time, Lee as well. Like you could be sitting there and effectively doing something huge for your team by applying an AoE debuff to the enemy marches and stuff. And maybe you use that like on a Thunder Lee, where the Thunder is dropping their attack and the Lee is also dropping their attack, defense, and HP as well. You're not going to get a lot of kills from that march. It's going to trade poor, but it's going to make the trades of yourself and all the rest of your members insanely better against those marches that you're targeting. So that, just like if you're playing an MMO or an RPG, especially an MMO where you have
Right.
groups and you have one tank, one healer, three DPS, maybe there's a support role, that kind of a thing. It definitely there is a lot of room in this game to have a support role in the field to do buffing and debuffing for marches.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because I was thinking about that because I was thinking, okay, we're fighting whales, for example, in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
we don't have anybody that has like 6M armaments or even 5M armaments. Not yet, at least. I
sure.
think in 2 months we might have some, but
Okay, okay.
and I was like, okay, we need to kill whales. So I think everyone should have Lee, Bianca, Claude, Sophie, because Sophie also has the debuff, right?
Yeah, so the 20% rate, I think.
Yeah, that's massive. It's so sick.
Yeah, it is.
I actually think Sophie's the strongest range hero right now, but
Yeah, yeah.
along with Ethan, obviously. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because then I think that would be like the best way for you to kind of slice down whales, essentially. Like everyone just like debuffing the hell out of them, and then your strong players can kind of, um, you know, pick off each of their troops. Like for example, like whales have five squad marches, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like, one of the things we were thinking about is like, okay, each we're gonna designate 10 troops per each squad of the whale, because you can have 10 troops hit one, right?
Yeah.
And then you have essentially 50 hitting him, and even if he's a whale, it'll be hard for him to or her to stop like 50 people like bashing them, right? Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so, anyways, that's just my thought process on that. Uh,
No, no, it absolutely is, and that's not like a new thought process either. I remember like way back in the day, and this is back in the day when like Bella and them were like brand new to the game.
right,
When we were playing like the G1 brackets, a lot of people, even if you weren't like a rider oriented or focused player, you would have one march that had Bella in it and one march that had Lee in it,
right.
because the Bella would apply that what is like a 20%, yeah, increases the damage they take by 20%, like a flat one on the rage use, and then the HP, defense, attack cut from Lee and stuff. Like everybody would stack those, because if your enemy had like one primary march, for example, that was dealing the most damage, like you knew that that was their main march, you could just target them with a few Bellas and a few Lees, and they would just melt like it was nothing, right? So it's the same principle now, but just with more heroes to be able to do it.
Oh, I see. So you can still use Bella also for that same.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you're not a rider player, but you have 1.5 mil rider troops and like a 2 mil, 3 mil, whatever rider set, and it's not your main damage dealer, obviously, but you're not going to throw something like there. You're very limited unless you invest into riders nowadays, like into your Chaseys or your Felixes and stuff. Like you really have to invest to get some of the newer ones. If you're somebody that doesn't have those and you don't care to invest in those because you don't want to focus on those that are really shine, if you do have good armaments and stuff, you can still get someone like a Bella to put a 20% damage debuff on the enemy for all your other marches that are much better and have it be like a low investment kind of thing. So
Gotcha. Awesome, man. So my next question is kind of interesting. I don't know, up to you if you want to answer it or not. Okay.
sure, sure.
Um, so this is a two-part question. The first part is I'm kind of deviating a little bit from the game question. I'll come back to the game question because I just
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah.
switch gears a little bit here. Why do you think a lot of OG players are quitting the game all of a sudden? And the second part is someone on Discord said that you are planning on quitting the game yourself. Is that still in the books, or you kind of decided to stick around?
I've kind of hinted at it for a while. Like it's no shocker or surprise, I guess, to many that burnout is a real thing on this game, and a lot of people are feeling it, whether a new player or someone that has spent on the game, or even whales and stuff. Again, which we see with a lot of whales quitting, and I'll circle that part of the question in a second. But anybody that I talked to on Discord about it, like how many times have we seen where if you go to Discord and you look at the patch notes they send out, like how many shit emojis or downvotes or clown emojis and that kind of stuff do you see on the patch notes that they put out as opposed to positive ones? And what you'll notice is that on the latest, or not the latest, but like whatever it is, the more recent dev blog that they put out with all the upcoming changes, like the garrison restrictions and all those types of things, like it actually for the first time in probably at least a year and a half, is the first time that they actually had more positive reactions and upvotes and thumbs up and stuff on those patch notes as opposed to downvotes. But then when you look at just the standard, once every month or once every couple months patch notes that they put out just for their normal updates, it's an insanely or it's an insanely skewed ratio where you might have like a 1 to 4 ratio where you have 4 times the amount of downvotes as you have upvotes on people approving for updates and stuff and for patches and whatnot. And so myself, like, I was just feeling burnt out where it's like you can only express to IGG for so long that things are a concerning thing. You understand, and I know not everybody has this perspective, but I understand that they're a business, like, so the first and foremost important thing to them is their balance sheet. They need to be profitable and, that kind of thing. Their main overall objective is to, it's for profit, right? It's to make money. So I understand that part. So I don't really have concerns there. It's just that I would say that the part for me that's the biggest burnout is that the community is not asking for a lot. There are definitely some issues that are larger than others that should maybe be addressed or should be maybe reassessed. But I feel like you can only go so long as an organization or as a game. If you're working for a company, you get burnt out of your job if you continue to express along with all the rest of your colleagues, like, hey, like this isn't operating well for the business, or this is, a shortcoming. And it seems like no matter how much you as an organization and as a group or an entity there voice your opinion, upper management or, C-suite execs, whatever have you, just completely just like shrug it off and they go a different direction as well. You'd probably quit your job. That's why people say that people quit managers, not the job itself, right? So in this case, I think that a lot of people are quitting the game, not because of the game itself. I think the game is great. I think it's a lot of fun, but I think it's just that the maybe like just the lack of you as a player, whether you're free to play, big spender, whether this is your first week on Doomsday or this is your third or fourth year. I think it's just kind of like the lack of acknowledgement to feel like your voice is heard. I think that it's kind of odd to have an area in Discord where you encourage people to submit feedback and submit feedback to the game and the developers and have people upvote on the ones that they do like or don't like, whatever have you. And then you also put out like, hey, here's an update. We pushed out this update. And then shortly after, take this survey. Here's 300 diamonds and, voice your concerns. And people have been voicing the same concerns for a long time. And it doesn't feel like any of that is being addressed. Not to say that they haven't addressed any of it. They've definitely made some changes and stuff and some good things. But I think that there's definitely some longstanding issues that, maybe they're not all big issues, but small issues. But it's simply the fact as well that, like, hey, these are small issues that are more like quality of life stuff. And I, as an R5 or others as R4s, or even just players as R3s, R2s, R1s, see this as an issue that impacts, the state of the game and the quality of the game for all players, and makes it difficult for alliance leaders to hold players, without quitting the game, or for players to hold interest in the game and stuff, right? At the end of the day, you're either investing money or you're investing time or you're investing both into this game, and nobody wants to, invest a lot of their time or money, especially into something that they feel like they're not getting a return on. You're not looking for a lot, but just to be able to, hey, I put time into this, I want to get some enjoyment out. That's the same thing with anything else in life. So yeah, I think it's kind of one of those odd areas. I've definitely expressed that I don't have nearly the passion for the game that I used to have. I used to have a lot of interest because it used to be nice to have a few things because everybody knows my perspective is like I deep dive into stuff. It's I like being able to take the things that they have on the table, dissect them, reverse engineer it, and be able to teach your average player or average Joe or new player, what that means, what it does, why it's important, and be able to help them. But even from my end, there's so much stuff in the game and continuously new and new and new stuff you have to unpack and evolve. Like beasts come out, that's one thing to unpack. Now all of a sudden chips come out, you have to unpack that. Now we have genes to look forward to that you have to also unpack. Like it's not they just release something, they release something that's threefold that just continues to increase the complexity of the game, which I think is just unnecessary right now. And that's kind of the burnout that I'm feeling. It's not to say that I'm quitting like right now or nothing like that per se. It's just that like when looking at like the trajectory of the game, I find it hard to find the appeal to kind of like stick around, I guess is the best way to put it. And I think that for a lot of other players, especially like a lot of the upper whales that I do remember, a lot of my OG friends, Hans, back in the day, Envy, a lot of people that I kind of knew that were up in that G1 bracket and stuff that we see walking away from the game and stuff are walking away because they kind of feel a lot of the same stuff. And from their end too, it's also very difficult just because you spend a lot and whatnot, and the game might be enjoying to you. They also enjoy the community factor of the game. You know, they grew up in H&B, in SSI, ROK, DHX, these alliances and stuff, and you know you make real friendships whether you're a free to play spender or a whale. And when a lot of their original friends quit the game as well, it also becomes very discouraging on their part too. So I think it's just kind of like a trickling effect really that's kind of happening.
Right. I completely agree with you, man. It can be discouraging. Like when they announced that the new range heroes are coming out, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Like,
we haven't even had two rotations of Void, and we already have a new range hero on the menu. You know, like
right.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's bad for infantry because range technically counters infantry.
Sure,
There's
sure, of
something else.
course.
So you invested all this money so that finally you're in even grounds with the riders and
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
range because for some weird reason the release of heroes for infantry is so much further than the rider in range, right? The rider
Yeah,
in range
yeah,
they're kind of like neighbors. While
yeah.
the infantry is like 3 or 4 months down the road, even longer sometimes. So I can totally see.
We call those generations, or at least we used to call them generations when they were further spread apart, right? Like for example, like you might think of the days when like Louis and Thunder and Bella and Sven were all brought out, right? Like
Right.
in that little niche of when they were brought out, and that was like say generation two of heroes. Gen one would have been like the originals. You know, the next generation of heroes would have been like your Eddies and your Julias. That kind of thing, and then from there it was just kind of like new generations because yes, there'd be a huge spacing. You would get a new infantry, then you get a new rider, then you get a new ranged or infantry ranged rider, whatever have you. Then it would be like another 6 months before you saw a new infantry that would then introduce what we would call the new generation of heroes. And that was fine because in any game like this, even with like MMOs and stuff, they have like the seasonal type stuff if you play those, where every season or every new generation of heroes in this case, you introduce new heroes, new mechanics. Like we didn't have heals or silences or like AoE garrisons or like high basic attack damage from chases, that kind of thing. Like you introduce new factors and new mechanics into the game, and that shifts what the next generation of heroes or what the next 6 months of gameplay would look like. But that gives players 6 months to organically shift their focus of their homes, of their armaments, of their heroes that they prioritize, like the hero pairs that you have. Maybe for 6 months you see different hero pairs because now all of a sudden old heroes that were irrelevant are now relevant as a pair with the new ones and stuff. So you get like 6 months of this new organically created ecosystem or meta, and then you bring out a new shift of heroes, and then that shifts to a new meta that counters the last one. Now you have a new subset of like hero pairs and that kind of a thing, right? But like that's like what a healthy meta shift looks like. That's how you keep games interesting. That's how you can like keep things like spicy or whatever have you. But now what we seem to have is just like instead of having like a healthy organic time or period for players to shift into a new meta, you're just outright throwing new heroes in players' faces. So now we don't actually have that organic enjoyment piece that comes with a meta shift. You're just going meta to meta to meta to meta at this point. So it's very odd the way they're doing it, to say the least.
It's odd, but it's not surprising because in a
Oh,
way
of
it's just
course, of course,
it's a money grab essentially at the end of the
of
day.
course, of course.
So to no one's surprise, obviously. Um, I'm curious though, to what new range heroes will be and a new rider heroes will be because I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
okay, the new we've covered the garrison and the field super weapons, right? So are they
Mm-hmm,
going
mm-hmm.
to bring a field one then to kind of cover all three bases, or is it going to be rally again? In which case, it's going to be the new meta will be like a double transcended rally hero with like whoever the new ranged top meta hero will be could be partnered up possibly with Bard, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe in December when they release another hero or something, then is going to be someone that will be paired up with Ethan, and it'll be like a double transcended, and that's going to be like the new meta, you know. So that's kind of
Yeah.
like what I was thinking, but I do think it's kind of weird though because I think if they are going to release heroes this fast, I think the infantry should be right after Rider right away, just to
Mm-hmm,
just to
mm-hmm.
make it
Yeah,
just to make the pacing at
I
least
agree. Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I also agree with the double transcendent part. Like, because like you said, it could go one of two ways, right? Like they could either go, okay, we have a rally transcendent hero for range with the Ethans, and we also have like the bards on the rallies, but that's also older. And also when you transcended him, he became more of like a field hero
right,
rather than just strictly focusing on rally and stuff. So yeah, it could definitely go one of two ways. Maybe they release a hero that's strictly rally, and you pair that with bard, or maybe they bring out something that is just very field oriented, and you do need to have a transcended bard in order to pair with him, and it's a great pair. But then that speaks to your other point of having the double transcended. I don't know. It's definitely a gray area where they put it. I would be interested to see what they do, but I also think that they're teetering on a very fine edge where if they bring out something that is just very rally oriented and it's made to say, like, for example, they like let's say they have an aspect like Bella where they deal bonus damage to shield heroes. If
right,
they bring out something on range that does bonus damage to shield heroes, it's a clear counter to Boyd. Well, then you just spit in everybody's faces that spent the last 2 rotations or 4 weeks investing in Boyd as the new top infantry hero, just to 4 weeks later after release bring out something that counters him, right? And so
right,
I don't know. I hope they navigate it well. I'm rooting for them. At the same time, I'm not optimistic because obviously I know what we're playing. And again, this isn't like a jab at the game or nothing like that. But it's just speaking on history, right? It could definitely go one of two ways. I hope that they recognize the fragility and how fragile it is of the situation that they're playing in. Because if you're already losing, um, top whales and stuff like that were your top spenders in the game and such, and dictated a lot of things. Because I know from speaking to Hans, he had gone to the last World Tournament and then had an opportunity to sit down with one of the developers after the fact or before the fact to talk about the state of the game, what should be recommended, and putting in ideas that actually came to the game. When you're losing players like that are playing such a key and pivotal role for other spenders in your game, it's definitely time that I think that you need to like reassess maybe the direction or at least the pace of direction you're going in.
right, right. Yeah, well, that sucks, man. I don't know what to say in this situation.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, and at the same time too, I've seen games have very good comebacks as well. Rise of Kingdoms wasn't in a great place for a long time, and then they brought out certain events and changed certain things that actually brought a larger community back to the game than what they originally
Right,
had and lost. So I think that they have, they're in a pivotal point, right? They either continue down the path that they are on, and I think we all kind of know what the end game is there.
right.
Not to say the game's going to end tomorrow or something like that. It's definitely got longevity in it, but the I think you just kind of need to shift your expectations, or they all of a sudden decide, okay, like, hey, we're losing a lot of top end side of things. We should really just maybe shift and actually go the direction we talked about. And I think they hinted that in the dev release too, where they said they were going to like slow down releases and slow down updates and focus on the core concepts of the game and stuff, which I'm still kind of yet to see. So hopefully they kind of adhere to what they said.
Right, right. I mean, they started, releasing some stuff that people actually like the Off Limits Wars
Oh,
pre,
of course, yeah.
short and sweet kind of event,
Yeah. That's what I mean. I'm not shitting on IGG, and I
yeah,
think I brought that early on in our conversation where I said, there's definitely good things that they've done, good things they've addressed as well. It's just that it's some of those like long-standing type of issues and really just like long-standing behavior of the
right.
way that they release stuff that I think that if they address would really put the state of the game in a much better place.
I think one of the rumors floating around is that they're purposely bloating their balance sheets because they're planning on selling the game.
On an acquisition. Yeah, the game was actually bought by IGG from the original creators. And when you look at it from a business standpoint, again, this is from someone that talks to some of the whales. And, if you're a whale and you're dumping $1 million into your account,
Right,
odds are you're doing pretty well for yourself. You own businesses, that kind of a thing. They all kind of say the same thing, too, where they feel or they have felt, or at least a lot of the ones I talk to, maybe not everybody, but yeah, they definitely feel like if you can push out a lot of content and get at least even like a feasible response on it for people that actually purchase it for about a year, then you can look and say, oh, here's our historical trend of how much money we're making in 2023, then 2024. We had a huge uptick in 2025. Now all of a sudden that looks really appealing on a balance sheet when you go to look to sell off to a different acquisition.
right, right. It's interesting though that you would go that path, especially if the game is a cash cow. Kind of like World of Warcraft's been around for a long time and it's still,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
it's still around.
Yeah.
So if you do it properly, you could still keep it as a cash cow for, years to come.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
Doomsday is in my personal opinion, like I hate mobile games because there's such
Oh,
money.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
But man, Doomsday is so good. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the community is so good. the interesting thing about this game that I like, it's like a love and hate. Like the hate part is like, developers largely ignore their player base,
Yeah, of
um,
course, of course.
like, you're making requests and whatnot, and there's like a saying like let your money do the talking for you, and the
Right.
players are doing that, and they're still not
Yeah.
listening, even with
Yeah.
money being thrown at them, which is kind of interesting. But on the flip side, is also good because the game is very largely uncensored, so you can talk as much shit as you want in the game, and no one really gets banned. You know,
You
like,
can't type sell now, otherwise you get
yeah.
banned for 20. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I got chat banned a few days ago. It was so bad.
Me too. Me too.
I was like, what?
I had somebody that asked. They were like, "Hey, where are people selling their accounts?" And I literally was like, "I don't know. I haven't sold an account."
Yeah,
And I think because I typed sold, yeah, I got banned for like
you got
24
chat
hours.
banned
Like,
also.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had to talk with my farm to people. I was like, hey guys, I'm chat banned. I'll talk to you guys with my farm.
Hmm.
Which is so annoying.
Yeah.
Um, uh, okay, here's a funny question, just to kind of go a little bit like lighthearted here.
Of course, please.
So I think someone wanted me to ask this to you because they wanted to start shit, but uh,
Okay.
not with you specifically, but
Oh, just stir the pot. Yeah.
just to start shit. Okay, so the question is, what do you think about YouTubers asking for money and complaining that IGG is not compensating them enough?
Oh, okay. I do know. I want to say I know who they're talking about. I don't hold any animosity towards anybody. I feel like anybody can, navigate their channels the way that they play, whatever have you,
Yeah.
any way that they want. A little bit of backstory myself. I've actually been in the YouTube scene since I was 18 years old. So actually 16 years old. So like what, 14 years now.
Wow.
I used to stream on Twitch back when it was like first came out. I actually used to run like one of the top Minecraft streams at the time. Um, and I've done video editing. Like video editing was my passion in high school. I got a scholarship to go do that out of, into college and whatnot. And that was originally what I was going to do before I broke into tech. And so I used to do video edits and montages for Call of Duty and stuff. I actually had the opportunity of editing videos for like FaZe Clan at the time when it was like early in trick shotting and stuff. Yeah, like I've kind of got like a background in that stuff, and it's like it's way cool to be in that scene. And one of the things that I kind of learned being exposed to the YouTube scene and that kind of thing is just like if you have a passion for it, I don't think that there's any like straight line between A to B on how to get there. I think that like if you have a passion for something, I think that this is kind of talked about quite a bit. Like if you have a passion for something, don't chase the money. Just do what you do best, do what you love, and the money will come. There's that saying. So I think that like if somebody's asking for money and if that's the way that they want to navigate, that's totally fine. I think that like what that's kind of showing for at least showing the user base or what you should get from that is that this means so much to them that it's something that they want to do actively, maybe full time, or actually like want to make a residual income from it. From my end and my side of things, I get asked that all the time, like, hey, why don't you charge players like a Patreon or ask players, for money or whatever, if you're going to help them with their accounts and stuff. And I don't do that. That's just not my thing. For my thing, my core enjoyment in this game is just having the opportunity to be able to look at each and every player's account or their situation or their questions, whatever it may be, and be able to have an opportunity to unpack something and maybe even learn something new myself, right? Because I think that me and you talked about this too, where it's like unless you're asking questions or asking the hard questions or asking new questions, you're not going to learn anything, right? So
Right.
I love taking other people's perspectives and stuff into place. But going back to the question about like if somebody's like asking for money or encouraging for money or asking for donations and feeling like IGG should compensate and stuff, if you feel like IGG should compensate, I feel like that's a conversation you should maybe have with IGG or bring that to them directly and maybe see if there are opportunities. Like, like that's how internships start. That's how, like other opportunities. Like that's how you would navigate the professional world anyways. And in the careers perspective is to just say like, hey, can I do freelance stuff for you guys and do stuff for free? And then be able to put content out that's marketable for them. And then maybe that turns into a position where they're paying you and stuff. I don't think that turning that direction to the community and saying like, oh, they owe this to me is something that you should do just as a personal perspective because in life that's something to learn is that nobody owes you anything and it's like one of the hard lessons to be learned is that like you may feel like you deserve something but that doesn't mean that life's going to give it to you. I think that like just by being a good person, by doing what you do and by doing what you love and by having good intent behind it and just putting your best foot forward, I think that opportunities will come. I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. I think you said that earlier too. So if someone's asking for money, I don't want to say he, but if someone's asking for money on their YouTube videos and stuff, just I guess just kind of recognize that this is something that's a clear passion for them and they want to make it a career. And if it blows up for them, awesome. I definitely have had friends, especially in the YouTube community, that have gotten big and turned it into careers, and they're still doing that to this day. And I think that that's awesome. I wanted to do it. I was on a road to do it at one point in time, and I had reconstructive shoulder surgery. From playing football and stuff, and my arm was in a sling for over 12 months, and so I couldn't play video games, I couldn't stream the same way and stuff. So yeah, that kind of fell apart. But I never lost the love for YouTube and just helping the community and doing these types of videos and running a community channel, which is why I'm back today, or still just kind of doing it on the side. But yeah, no, I don't necessarily see any issue with it. I think that I don't think other people should either. I think that you should, if you like their content enough, support them in that way. If not, then just simply don't, and just go about your business. I guess I don't know.
Right, right. I was gonna say that was a great politician answer.
It kind of is. It is the political way to do it, but at the same time, too, like I also have to kind of recognize and really, again, like one of the lessons that I've learned in YouTube, because I used to be very reactive back in the day as well, too.
Right,
It's just that simply like if you are going to be someone that is making YouTube videos and stuff, like you really do have to have like a net neutral perspective on a lot of things. I can't let my own feelings, kind of take front on it. And honestly, it is probably the best way to kind of navigate it as well, right? Like
right.
nothing I say or do or have a perspective on or whatever is going to change anything. Yeah, like if you're putting out content and it's good enough content and stuff, the money will come. Like people will pay you for it anyways, right? So
Yeah.
if that's your goal, then just let it be. I guess I don't know.
I think that this question was specifically to target a specific YouTuber, but I don't think it's the one you're
I
thinking.
know, I know. No,
Yeah.
I know who it is. I think there's only one person I know of that does that. But
Okay,
again,
okay, okay. There we go.
yeah, yeah, no.
Well,
But again, I'm not taking jabs at him. I don't have anything against him or
yeah.
any issues with him at all. But I do know that that's a part of his videos. But I can see where people would take some oddness to that and stuff. But again, because I've been doing YouTube and Twitch for so long,
Yeah.
I've heard that same sentiment many a times. Like, hey, donate, or hey, subscribe, or pay the $5 a month,
Sure.
whatever. Like I've heard that for so long. It's just kind of like it's just
Normal.
another sentence, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I get what you mean also, because I'm also a YouTuber outside of this game. Like
yeah.
so like this is
I,
not
I will say from like the knowledge standpoint, I feel like especially for someone like yourself who
right.
does very, very well with the deep dives also, you do put very good content out there. You put guides that are good for players at any level, whether it be low. I know that you have that series for the low spenders, the mid spenders, the high spenders and stuff. Like
Right.
that type of content is marketable content that would encourage players for longevity in the game and is something that IGG should look at and recognize is very valuable and should be able to compensate you for it. It's just that again, if that is your mindset where it's like I feel like I should be compensated from IGG to do these things, then
Right.
you either need to maybe have a strike against the fact that you're putting this content out and put it behind paid barriers if that's what you're focused on, or approach IGG and just say like, hey, market yourself and just say like, hey, I'm doing this for your game. Here's the benefits to it, and you have to tie a dollar to that, right? Like if I was to approach a business and say like, hey, I can, I feel like you should be paying me for this work. I can't just have that sentence and feel like I'm going to get compensated. I need to turn the work that I feel like I'm doing into a numerical number to get a raise or to get compensated for it, right?
Right.
Like that's just how the business world works. And
Right.
so I think that, yeah, I think that the conversation might be valid. I think the approach might just be, not the right one.
Right. Right. Um, yeah, I think, I mean, personally from a personal standpoint speaking, I mean, I started making YouTube videos just to get those free items that they bribe you with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you make like what, 10 videos and you get like a bunch of like free items. Like that's how it started for
I don't
me.
know. I don't get free shit anymore. I think they hate me, man, because I call them out. So
Oh, really? No, because
yeah,
it's
no,
like, it's
yeah.
like the creator turf, right?
The creator
Yeah.
turf stuff. If I go to my creator, I'll submit stuff to the creator turf, and it'll just say like interview. I think that like out of all the creator turf events that I've entered, I've only ever gotten that turf. That like what is it like the player the name card or whatever it is that you get for like a week. I've only
Oh,
gotten it like twice
really?
out of like yeah, dude. Like at one point in time when I called him out for just putting out updates where things were broken and I made it public after they didn't respond in tickets, I noticed that like I
They
don't get
stopped
I don't
giving you
get
the tag?
acknowledged anymore. Yeah, I don't get acknowledged.
Really?
So yeah, I'm not kidding. I was talking to Armored or no Panda about this.
Yeah.
Or yeah, it was either Panda or Armored. I was showing it to them. Like yeah, it's literally like they don't look at my stuff anymore.
Oh, that's so weird because you are
Yeah.
the person that is like a go-to reference for a lot of players in the game. So, That's interesting.
It's all good, man. Like
Yeah.
I said, the only reward I liked out all that was the name card. I always thought it was kind of cool to have that name card and then put it
Yeah.
in like the
Like the game.
videos where like I was streaming like AR or IR, make a
Yeah.
video out of it. It was just kind of cool to have that. That was the only one I was concerned about. So I was like, whatever.
Yeah. I usually put it on like during events so I can get
Yeah.
better allies. They're
Better
like,
allies. That's funny.
yeah, because I'll put it up, right? And they'll be like, "Oh, are you the YouTuber Charmander King?" I'm
Oh.
like, that's me. That's me.
Oh,
Like
that's
I mean that
funny.
happened to me before. Like some like this alliance was killing me, like my team. And
Yeah.
then they're like, "Wait a minute, are you the YouTuber?" And suddenly they were like super friendly to us and they let us out of our like outside the helipad where we were like stuck.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sweet, I get to fight more, you know? So like
No, that's too funny,
yeah,
actually.
I used like the clout a little bit to help me in the game.
Dude, no, the cloud for me is opposite. If I go into like especially like Apex or Elite, I cannot begin to tell you how many times I will like be in a murder ball and everybody like I'll see it because I keep my optimization on high there. It'll
Yeah.
go from like nobody's targeting me to like 30 marches all target me. And then
Yeah.
as I'm like resetting my marches, like I'll get my messages pop up in the bottom left. They're like, hee hee, I killed you, put me in your next video, or hee hee, I got to kill Z. It's like, okay. Like, dude, I'm changing my name. I'm changing my alliance. I'm deleting YouTube. Like, I can't play this game, man. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Change your name to Nazi. Just kidding. But like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Not the real Z. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. Like, I guess you're the trophy then.
I guess. I don't know what I did. Like, I'm just
They're
trying
like,
to help players.
I'll kill this nerd, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck this nerd. Yeah.
Fuck this guy. Yeah,
Oh, shit.
you diss my you said I put too much in one stat, not enough in the other, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I know. I have been told that as well, actually, a few times. Funny enough, where people are like, "Oh, I can't believe that you told everybody that." Actually, the one I'm thinking of specifically, this one guy used to be like a rally lead for their team. I
yeah.
put out a video about like how to optimize your armaments, and all of a sudden, their R5 demoted them from being a rally leader because his stats were all messed up. And he goes,
Really?
"Because of you, I don't rally lead anymore." Blah blah. I'm like, okay, like my fault, I guess.
Oh, that's funny, man. You got someone devoted. That's
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
I don't know.
You ruined someone's career. I hope you sleep good at night.
Oh, peacefully, man. I love it. Eating
Yeah.
it up.
By the way, quick question again, game
Yeah,
related
please.
wise.
Go ahead.
So we talked about certain troop types having advantage over certain troop types, and 5% was
Mhm.
kind of like the general numerical
Yeah,
number. I mean, it's not proven, but kind of ish.
yeah.
Um, so if you're fighting, let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm range main and I'm fighting a infantry main person, right? And then
Okay.
let's say I'm doing like an Ethan Garrison, right? And they're gonna rally me or whatever.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
let's say their armament is like like 1 million more than mine, but I'm
Okay.
range and they're infantry, which gives me
Sure.
a slight advantage.
Sure.
Would that still make a big difference in regards to, okay, would I be able to handle that much rally coming in, or would that be like,
Mhm,
no, that's too much of a gap, 1 million
mhm.
in armaments? Maybe the sweeter spot would be like, and basically I'm asking you like, what do you think is like the equivalent, right? Like let's say 4
Sure.
million range armaments versus like 4.5 infantry. That would be kind of like in the
Ye-
ballpark area, kind of like similar, like equal, you know?
No, that yeah, that makes I get that actually. I would say that like probably like 500K to 1 mil is your sweet spot, and I would lean more towards 500K. And the reason why I kind of give it that range though is that again, if we're comparing, the flat 5% to a numerical value, if you get a red 5% squad damage reduction hone, I think it's like 150,000 power or something like that is like what you obtain. But I'm fluffing that to 500K to 1 mil, and the reason for that is that I get this a lot where I will get sent a report and they'll say, "Hey, I have a 6 mil infantry set, and if the person that I'm rallying against or garrisoning against or whatever, or rallying against, they have a 5 mil set. Why did I trade so poorly, right?" And again, this kind of comes back to the same thing of like, "Oh, it's a 300 mil player. They're a whale. They're going to kill it." And it's like they're inflated by infantry troop or they're just troop inflated, right?
Right.
It's the same application to armaments where I get this time and time, and this is honestly probably the most common thing that I get messaged about in game when it comes to receiving reports from players is why is it that my 6 mil infantry lost to a 5 mil rider or whatever have you? Like, why
Right.
is there a discrepancy in power and I'm losing? And when you look at their homes, you'll see like they're rallying, but they have 8 garrison homes or they have 5 move speed homes, or they're garrisoning and they have 10 rally homes or 5, whatever have you. And I have to have that conversation with them to say, like, hey, rather than taking these 8 red rally homes when you're garrisoning, and I'll have that conversation like, are you garrisoning 80% of the time and rallying 20%? Like, what's that ratio look like? And even then, maybe we should steer clear of these homes, because if you're rallying and you have 8 garrison homes on your armament set, let's just take, like, we'll use the max value as like the top end of what you could have obtained. If you have 8 slots missing on your rally because they all stay garrison, so you can just null those out. You can cross those out when you're rallying because those stats don't exist. You can cross those home slots out. If each one of those were a 5% infantry squad attack, you would have 40% more attack. If they were each a lethality or a block value, you would have 500 more lethality or 500 more block at 65 each times 8, right? So because of that huge discrepancy, it may say on paper that you are stronger than them, but when you remove the amount of stats that you're actually not, or have zero application to your garrison or rally or that kind of a thing, or even in the field, someone will say, hey, I have a 6 mil or 6 mil infantry troop. Why am I trading so poorly in the field? And they have a mixture of rally and garrison homes all across their set, and it's because none of those stats are showing up. So that's why I would give it a 500K to 1 mil fluff, is that the vast majority of players, far, far few, for every 10 players that sends me a report, there's 1 player that actually has their homes optimized, like where it's all one squad type or one troop type plus squad homes, no rally, no garrison. So they work in all 3, rally, garrison, and field, where they actually optimize their homes. Because of that, since 90%, and I can confidently say 90% of the player base doesn't optimize their homes, you have a huge buffer here to say, yes, I may have 150K coming from that 5%, troop damage advantage or squad damage advantage or whatever have you, but they may also have 500K or so in homes that are just not applicable to that report or that combat scenario. So yeah, I would say like 500K to 1 mil is like the difference that would make, that you could eat
For the troop type
for
specifically.
the troop type. Yeah, yeah,
I
just simply because of the state of the game.
I see, gotcha. So just to summarize, just to make sure I'm getting what you said.
Yeah.
If I'm range main and let's say doing an Ethan Garrison and they rally me with, let's say, Stella and
Mm-hmm.
whoever Stella is paired up with,
Yep.
Budala
Yep.
or Marco,
Yep.
whoever, um, then if their armament, let's say, is 5.5 million, that's equivalent to my 4.5 million then, assuming that
I would, yeah, I
I
would
would,
say closer to 5 mil. I would say closer to 5 mil, but yes, it could be down as 4.5 if they have a lot of like cross homes or whatever.
oh, you mean if they have the homes that doesn't add value to the,
Yeah, yeah. If they do have value added homes, and there's not too many of them that are mixed up, maybe they have like 3 or 4 or whatever have you.
yeah.
Probably closer to you having a 5 mil. If they have a lot of mixed up homes or whatever, and maybe you see like, I would say like especially like 6+ homes that are not applicable to what they're doing, like rallying you, then it's closer to 4.5.
Gotcha. So I guess a lot of factors also comes to play, includes like your parts, right? Because there's parts that has damage reduction, for example.
Yeah, for sure,
So
for sure.
then you just kind of play around with those value to get a rough estimate ish. But 500K is kind of like the, you know,
Yeah, I would say 500K is a sweet spot. Yeah.
okay. Let me write this down. Give me a second.
Yeah, no, no, no,
So
of course.
so you're not talking about the damage reduction hone, right? That 5% damage reduction hone. You're speaking.
No, 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 no. Yeah, simply like infantry versus rider, rider versus range, that kind of a thing. It is a flat 5% squad damage bonus, is how you could think of that, because it's just like it's like a damage penetration one where it's like avoiding defense and stuff. It's not nullified by any of those. So
Right.
really, it's almost like having 2 squad damages, because typically like a squad damage is reduced by defense, whatever have you. So yeah, like you would essentially be having like 2 more homes of that type of squad damage as an advantage. It'd be like you versus them, and then you just have like this little extra line of like plus 10% squad damage is really like what that kind of equates to when you like
Right.
compare something.
Well, I'm also curious. So if someone has damage hones, that's
Mm-hmm.
just like the damage percentage one,
Yeah.
and they attack you, and you have the same exact figure. Let's say you have a red 5% damage reduction, and they use
Mm-hmm.
the 5% damage on their armaments on you. From my perspective, that doesn't nullify your 5% damage reduction. It doesn't work
No, no, yeah,
that
no,
way.
no. It's all a multiple. It's not like oh, you have this, I have that, so
Yeah.
it's crossed out kind of a thing. No, it's all a numerical value multiplication like equation, right? So you get this equation. What it is, it's like your troop count times your troop tier, because that's going to be your base values, times your attack percentage, right? That gives you like one, that's like your base damage value. Then you take all that and you multiply it by your lethality damage bonus, your firepower damage bonus, and then firepower damage bonus additional if you have the barrage fire, or yeah, sorry, if you have the barrage fire effect. But if you have lethality, sorry, that's what I'm thinking of. If you have lethality, you're getting, obviously that's a multiplier. But like the info card says, if your lethality is higher than the block, you actually deal bonus damage also. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit there too. Times squad damage, times skill damage, if that's also applicable. Like there's so many other multiplication factors in there. Then that gives you the overall final damage that you're going to deal. Now you take that number and you divide it against the enemy troop size or squad size times their tier, all these things times their HP, and then it's that attack number damage divided by that defense number damage that you have, and that gives the final amount. So no, it's not 5% across the board, crosses out another 5%.
Right.
It's just how that plays into the overall equation.
I'll have to re-listen to this thing that you just said after this
Yeah, no,
video,
no,
'cause
no.
that was
I
pretty.
guess to kind of reiterate that, that goes back to earlier what I was saying, where I was like, if you are far stronger than your opponent,
Yeah,
then your range damage bonus versus infantry will be much more prominent, right? Because your damage numbers are already going to be much higher anyways. So that 5% damage bonus is going to make that shine much better than if you are evenly trading with your opponent, and that 5% is only going to give you like a minute boost, basically.
gotcha. You just mentioned about lethality and block, how, if your lethality is higher than your opponent's block, you get bonus damage, right? Is
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
bonus damage substantial, you would say, or not so much?
I would say it is. And I would just, I'm saying this coming from experience, where I would say that even going up into Apex, the average lethality that I'm fighting against is like 800, right? My block is up at 1200, so I've got that extra bonus. It used to be down at 800, and I shifted hones around for a while and just kind of kept seeing, okay, I'm at 800, now I'm at 900, now I'm at 1000. Like, what does it kind of look like? And I think that me and you had talked about that, because I think that that's how we even started talking, was I brought it up in one of your videos of
Right.
like why someone should focus on lethality or block. And you had the same mindset where it's like, oh yeah, well, since it's the only place to get lethality or block, focus on that. Yes, it even says it in the tooltip, like, hey, the higher, or the higher your value is than theirs, the more bonus damage reduction or more bonus damage you're going to get. So it continues to kind of force multiply there. So yeah, I've definitely seen it as you get into higher values do more. There are diminishing returns in there, and it happens very fast. Actually, I think it's at like once you are plus 160 over your opponent. So if you're at 960 and they're at 800, right? You're 960 block, they're 800 lethality. You're already down to where 70% of your diminishing returns is already in effect. So for every 10 additional points of block that you get, you only see a 3 block difference. So you go up plus 10, but then when you look at the combat report, it's like you only added plus 3 block in terms of like effectiveness on the combat report. You didn't get a full 10 amount. But and that seems kind of drastic, a 70% hit. But again, since it's a multiplier of like the end of the number, and it's the only place to get it, it actually comes out to be, still substantially good.
It's one of those what do you call it? Like weird situations where I kind of like what you said, you should only be really 160 over, like let's say your lethality should only be 160 over your opponent's block to maximize
Yep.
the bonus damage that you get from this. But then,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then ideally you would put your hones into something else, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
you can't really tell who you're fighting, right? So you can't
That
be like,
that yeah, that goes exactly to what I was talking about earlier, where I said that the very first thing that I ask somebody when they say like, "Hey, what should I change on this?" I ask them, "What is your average G bracket that you're fighting in, and is it consistent? Like, are you consistently getting G25, G30, that kind of thing? Are you fighting in
right,
fearless?" And then again, that's why I tell them, "Hey, go out into the field, go hit, go spend some time field fighting or whatever have you. Share me those reports, and let's take a look at what the average firepower and I'm sorry, lethality and block are."
right.
And then what you'll do is that if you are somebody that is not as much of a spender, aim to be about at least 75% of the average. So if the average fire or lethality and block that you see is 400, let's aim for 300. If you're somebody that's more of a spender, let's actually bump that up and try to go 25% above what the average is, so you get a bonus there as well. Yeah, so that way, if you're like on the free to play end, you're mitigating a lot of that damage bonus that your opponent gets, but you're not like overdoing it to where you're slipping into diminishing returns and stuff.
Right.
And it gives you a numerical value to go for. And then if you're on the spending side of things, you have a target to kind of go after, but you don't have to dump a lot of money only chasing lethality and block. You can then hit that target and then dump into attack and defense.
Right. But then I guess the higher the bracket that you play, the higher this value has to be then.
For
'Cause
sure, for sure. With
yeah,
Apex, it's like 900 or something like that is the average. In Elite, I think I typically see like 750, and then I don't even know what Fearless. I don't think I've ever been there, so
you haven't played in Fearless in a while, or
I don't think I ever have. Because again, we went from like 14 bill, and then we cut the alliance in half. So I think the smallest we've ever been is like 6 bill. So
yeah, I like Fearless because it's the Wild West. You have like a whale that's like 300, 400 M, and then he's fighting a bunch of like 50, 75 M players,
yeah, I can't imagine
and then he'll just like blow at them, they all fly.
that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous at Fearless, but I kind of like it though because it's kind of I like that like sudden randomness in what you're gonna get.
Oh yeah, no, of course that
Eventually,
makes sense. Yeah.
I like that. From me, I find it very entertaining. Like the sudden shocks, like what the fuck, we're fighting a 400 M. Like why are they even doing here? Like
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, do you think there's such thing as like let's say that if the alliance, because not all alliance they properly optimize their team essentially. Kind of like what we discussed earlier. It's like, oh,
Sure, sure.
it's Archipelago raid. Everyone, please let us know who you're gonna be sending as representation as for the triple rally. And they're like,
Yeah.
we have nobody. We don't even have any rally. We're just all field players, right? Because like that also exists, right? Um, so if an alliance is they're trying to start building up their roster so that they actually have a proper rally and garrison captain in their team, would you say there is such thing as an evergreen rally or evergreen garrison hero that I wouldn't say it's the best that will beat all other rally and garrison, but like in the sense that okay, if I only have this one set, it has the better returns, even if it's not like the best trades. So for example, like for rally, would Stella be the best option versus like like a Julia Bard or like a Chasey Felix or whatever, or Rubina and whatever. And then for Garrison,
Sure.
like who should be your first um, Garrison captain? Should it be like a Chasey one, or should it be like an Ethan one, or should it be like you know, Boyd, or even the classical, Ragor Ribbon? Like, what are your thoughts for like a good evergreen one for like an alliance that's trying to build up their team?
Yeah, so honestly, it sounds like really the question is like what are the heroes that are the best bang for your buck for like longevity, right?
Like let's say they can only have one, like they only have one
Yeah,
rally,
yeah,
one
yeah,
garrison.
and it has to be like well rounded. Yeah, I get
Yeah, exactly.
that.
Yeah.
I would say that for range right now, you're probably looking at Ethan's because you see a lot of Ethan's in rallies. But obviously, also Ethan is amazing in Garrison. But that's if you're kind of on the spenders end and can be able to get him transcended.
Oh, sorry, can I cut you for a second there?
Yeah, yeah.
No, so I'm not talking about like troop specific only. I'm talking about like this.
Oh yeah, no, no, no. I'll do one for each troop type, and then I'll kind of give like the overall one. But it also kind of still
Okay.
has. I feel like it also has to still be applicable to the fact that I know that you also as an individual preach to your players of like, hey, like hyper dump into one troop type, right? Like
Right.
that's the best way to do it. So I feel like the best approach would probably be to do both. So I would say like if you're ranged, Ethan's will probably be your best. If you can spend some. If you can't, Sophie's do really well right now in rallies and garrisons. If you're a rider, Chasey's do really well in both rally and garrison because of obvious, I mean, just the damage reduction, the basic attacks, things like that. If you're infantry, Stellas do extremely well with your rallies and then also can translate very well into your garrisons also. Um, I mean, overall, I would say that your Chaseys are probably your best ones because honestly, Chasey's only real downside is multi-rally garrisons. But when you think about it, like how many scenarios are you as an individual alliance going to end up in multi-rally garrisons unless you're playing in something like AR? And if you're playing in something like AR, odds are with five alliances or 4 to 5 alliances in your legion, somebody's going to have, also another garrison that they can put in to supplement for that multi-rally garrison, like an infantry or a range or something that's half decent. But even with multi-rally garrisons, chassis can be okay. It's not going to be the best, but now you're also kind of betting on someone else having something to supplement. So I would say like Chasey is probably the most well-rounded overall evergreen hero. Stella's could also be good because she does well in like rallies and garrisons and stuff. But the only issue about Stella is that Chasey is still highly effective in the field where Stella isn't. Like I don't use Stella at all in the field because you have to target her in order to get effectiveness. So it's like hard to use her like say in a secondary rally or a third rally or out in the field or whatever have you. So yeah, I think just overall, I would say probably Chasey is the best. And then if you're not able to go for something that has a transcended weapon, probably Sophie would be the best.
So Sophie is the best for budget players, you would say.
Sophie would be the best for budget players. She does extremely well with the debuffs in field. She does extremely well on rallies because of the low rage proc to be able to have something like a Louis or something that's also budgetable behind her. And then she also does well in garrisons because of the low rage proc also and the bonus skill damage that she applies to the rallies too.
Cool. This is super interesting to me because lately I've been thinking that Stella might be the most versatile best hero in the game right now. But you think
Yeah.
Casey still? Because I was kind of debating between Casey and Stella for the longest time,
Mm-hmm.
and you said
Stella can be, but we also have to take into factor here as well. Like Stella does, like you have to, for example, transcend at least two of her skills to be able to use her on Garrison, right? The HP one, and then also the War Wheel stack one. I would do because then it goes from like like a 30% proc chance to a 50% proc chance on counterattacks. You need both of those to be effective on Garrison with her, or to at least be as effective as you can be without maxing her out. Which means that you have to spend, which also goes back to our earlier conversation where, the majority of players are in infantry, so they're doing infantry TC. So it's also going to be the most competitive. So I'm trying to take a few factors into effect when thinking about that.
right. No, that's a good point because one of the biggest issue in the game right now, just from my perspective, is Splendid Steel. It is like the biggest
Oh, yeah, yeah.
choke point or barrier.
Really bottleneck, yeah.
Yeah, bottleneck. Yeah, that's a good word. That was what I'm looking for. Um, yeah, like I think when it first came out, it wasn't too bad. Like you can rank like even in second place with just like 1,000 files, and now
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
like lately we have a part-time whale that plays with us. Like the podcast I did, like the one you saw with Wazar,
Yeah, yeah,
it was like 5,800 I think files for first place, and the
yeah.
second one was like 5,100, and it's rising every month or so. So
Yeah, yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't even have Void fully done. I won the first one, but it costed me 9,500 files, and so I didn't have any files to try to even place for the second one. So I'm gonna have to wait until Void becomes actually obtainable to try to like max them out. I think, unless I want to dump a stupid amount of money, which I don't. So yeah, it's rough for the infantry players.
9,500 files for first.
9,500 files for
What
first
was
place
the
the first
second
time.
place person?
We were both racing, so it came
Oh
down to like
dear.
the last second. We were both spamming it, so I think he ended at like 9,100 or 8,700 or something.
Oh God. He
So,
that person would be so mad. Like
oh
that.
yeah, no, I don't give a fuck who's stepping on. I'm taking first place on that. I
Yeah.
have to,
Yeah.
but but it just yeah, I only had like 1,100 files left, and I was like, this isn't even gonna be able to give me like fourth place or whatever have you to try to get another skill. So yeah,
Right. Jesus Christ. That's so annoying. Um
yeah.
this question that someone has is for you specifically in terms of like what made you decide to be infantry main and also garrison focus?
Yeah, so I actually used to be a rider main when I first started with armaments and stuff, and when I was first playing.
Yeah.
When we were playing an island raid, because island raid, I don't even think we had Archipelago raid out yet when
Yeah.
armaments first came out. But yeah, when we were in island raid and playing on towers and stuff, I mean, we obviously didn't have chases or anything like that at all. So with riders, I was able to break into towers and rally them really well and stuff. We couldn't hold towers for shit at the time. And the infantry player that we did have, had to leave for family reasons and stuff. And so it was just like it was like a natural pivot because it was kind of like you could look at the game one of two ways. We can break into something all day long, but if we can't hold it until the time runs out, you haven't really accomplished anything. Well, on the flip side of things, like it may take us longer to break in, but if we're trading well on the infantry side of things, then it doesn't matter if it's a 1 hour rally or a 10 hour rally. As long as our trades are positive, as a tank rally, we're good to go. And then once we're in with that infantry march, then they can't break it. So, and plus, I actually, I watched a lot of anime, and at the time, I was watching a lot of Rising of the Shield Hero, and it just I kind of took on this persona where I wanted to like just be able to block anything and everything that was coming our way and be able to hold it and piss the enemy off. And that was honestly what I got the most joy out of playing an Apex was, and I I remember this. I think I streamed it actually. We were playing against DHX and SafeMe at the time, and we were just a small alliance, and they rallied us in Island Raid, and they rallied us for like 2 hours and couldn't break our tower, and so they had to build a choke tower on us, and it became a meme because it was like, oh, you actually made like this nobody made Safe Me have to build a flank tower basically around us to cut our stuff. And he was like, oh, I respect you guys a lot. Like props to this team for being able to hold against. Like it was like one of those like really cool feelings, and it was
Yeah.
just it kind of grew from there.
Yeah. That sounds super satisfying to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Even when I first joined this game, there was like even the alliance I was in, there was no true garrison focused players.
Yeah.
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 Like right now I'm starting to see it more, but
Hmm.
if you play, I would say from mid fearless and below, you would
Yeah.
rarely see any teams that have a proper garrison captain.
Really?
It's really bad.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Like everyone's rallying with Miyamoto, everyone's garrisoning with Miyamoto, and
Oh no.
it's just yeah, it's just Miyamoto everywhere. And you know, it's yeah, it's like just what do you call it? The state of things below for mid fearless and below. Upper fearless is getting kind of really intense nowadays.
Oh yeah.
So each teams do have their proper garrison captains. They might not
Sure.
have more than one though. They might just have one captain. So that's why I was asking that question earlier because I was seeing this a lot. So it could give some teams kind of like a perspective. It's like, okay,
Yeah. Of
we only
course.
have one person. Who should it be? Now they know it's Chasey, right? You know.
Yeah.
So um,
No, that
or,
makes sense. That
yeah,
makes
or
sense.
if they're like a lower spend player, they could be Sophie. You know. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, okay. This is gonna be my last question based on the people that's asked me to ask you a question. Okay. So
Sure. Sure.
so the
Sure.
last question that I have here on my list of questions to ask you is actually, um, what would you say are the best packs to buy in the game? And we're not talking about just like the obvious ones like Super Monthly Pass or Gem Pack,
Yeah. Yeah.
or like that silver armament one, the cheap $3
Yeah.
one. So like
Yeah.
I'm not talking about those ones, but like do you think there's anything that's really good pack to buy in the game that's often overlooked but is actually a best bang for your buck?
Sure. So if you are a garrison or rally player, when that, like that, I think it's like weekly or bi-weekly beast event that comes out or whatever, right? We have to like unlock all the slots and, like they have like the roulette part of it. Then that's also where you get like the OC chips and stuff.
Yes.
There's that bottom event for like the awakened potential thing or whatever it is. That one is actually really good if you are a garrison or rally player because one, you can get all of those materials needed to raise your research tree, which if you are raising your beast, you're getting OC chips or you're just getting chips in general and stuff like that. Like maxing out your tree to get that full like 70% bonus to your support beast goes a lot further than you may think it does. So that's like one of the most economical things that you can spend on to get like I think it's like 300 of those resources or whatever have you to advance your research tree for beasts. That one's really good, but then also all of the things that you need to use to move up your core potential, which is the pristine lives. So the pristine lives are one of your most expensive factors to fully awaken a beast or like bring out their full potential and stuff like that by raising the potential tree. So I would say that yeah, that one gets overlooked quite a bit, but that's what raised my beast very fast was that event. Um, Other than that, I feel like everything else is kind of obvious. I think that black market event is really good for armaments and for garage and for parts or materials along with your beast too. You can also get the same materials to move up your beast research tree and stuff like that. I would say that those two are probably the ones that people don't. I don't actively see people invest as much in as the black market and then the awakened potential whatever event.
Right, right. So you're referring to Biohazard Frenzy, right? Earlier?
Yeah, Biohazard Frenzy, the very last event within or mini event within that or sale within that event itself.
There's you're not talking about the chips, right? You're talking about something else?
Yeah, it's the one that happens after the chips, right? So the first, or they have that roulette one. Then, like on day two or whatever it is, or day three, then the chips open up in that roulette. Like you can do that if you're chasing the OC chips, that's fine. But to actually like get your beast like fully awakened, where you unlocked all the core potential tree and stuff like that for your beast, you need the pristine lives. And the pristine lives themselves can be very expensive to get and very time consuming. But in there, you can actually get a large sum of them for cheap because it like the first row or whatever have you in the rewards, it's like minus 60% off or whatever it is. So you can go in there and spend like 25, 30 bucks, whatever it is, and be able to get a large sum of pristine lives as opposed to if you try to get them in like other ways.
Is that the one where like there's like it kind of goes up and then
Yeah. The more points that you spend in the shop, it like goes up as well. So it's kind of like a double benefit where you get all the
uh,
stuff like from that tree going up, but then you also just buy out the discounted stuff, the
yeah.
stuff that's like 60% off, and then I just wait till the next event, do it again.
I think I did the math on that one. I think is it I think 3,000 points or whatever gets you like the best like
Yeah, you can like pretty much max it out for fairly cheap. Yeah, and if you're lucky too, since part of it is kind of like a gambling type thing where it's like depending on like every time you roll, however much rewards you get back, like you could hit lucky and max out, that week's thing or whatever, and then have points to carry over to the next event because the points do carry over. So
right, right. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Cool, man. That's a really good one. I don't even I overlooked that. So I mean I didn't overlook the pristine life one,
yeah,
but like I wasn't thinking that
yeah, you can buy the pristine lives on discount, and then I don't think it's discount to get the stuff that pushes your research, but
yeah.
because you're buying the pristine lives for 60% discount, instead
Yeah.
of using the full points to get pristine lives, you can then
Right.
use what you saved to then push your research tree as well. So I'm always a fan of anything that explicitly says like, hey, here's the normal cost of it, and we're selling it to you for 60% off or whatever.
Yeah.
I those are the ones I usually go after.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's a good tip because I was listening to your podcast a long time ago with Brain, Mr. Brain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you were talking about what was that event called? Julius Magic Cards, and you said that if you max
Yeah.
it out, that's like an amazing deal or whatever. So
Yeah, if you just max out the bar itself, yeah. That's another one too. But I feel like a lot of people are focused on that now because of like the a lot of you could see it. A lot of people like get their garages up now as opposed to back in the day.
right.
I think a lot of people have recognized that. So that's still an answer, but it's not like one of like more maybe like hidden answers. So
Gotcha. So it's not like a like
it's not so much of a secret anymore.
not
Yeah,
special anymore. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, dude. We're gonna wrap up this podcast soon. I'm just gonna
Sure.
leave the platform, the floor to you. Is there anything that we haven't discussed or any question you have for me that you
Um,
think that we should discuss? That
Honestly, shoot, man. I mean, we've been going up for like 2.5 hours. I feel like
I
we
know.
have covered a lot of the things.
Yeah, we
Shoot,
did.
time flew by.
But
I would say one of the funny parts. You mentioned Miyamoto. You don't really like him. Not a lot of people know this, but his skill 2 and his skill 4 proc on counterattacks. So counterattacks have a 20% chance to reduce skill damage, and counterattacks have a 20% chance to reduce enemy HP. Right. So people look at that and they're like, "Oh, Miyamoto's really good because if I'm getting swarmed, they're getting, they're all getting hit by this, whatever have you." There is a secret, hidden limitation and bottleneck to both of those skills that is not displayed. That if you remember, if you've ever watched Mr. Brain's videos from way back in the day, not a lot of people have because he's been away from the game for a long time. We both covered this. So if you're getting swarmed by 5 marches, your initial thought, because there's no limitation based on the verbiage, is that all of those marches are dealing less skill damage and all those marches are having their HP reduced. That's not a fact. What ends up happening is that if you're getting attacked by 5 marches and one of those marches procs the HP reduction or procs the skill damage reduction, it applies to that march, and then that skill itself goes on a 7-second cooldown before it can apply to another march or that same march again.
oh wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I can only proc to one target at a time, and it has a 7-second cooldown each time that it procs. And that's not per target. That's just in general.
Okay, I'm just gonna say one thing about this. So this is super cool, by the way, but I think most players don't even realize this is happening. Like they don't
Yeah,
even.
no,
I
not at
mean, I
all.
mean, they're not even thinking about the surface layer stuff. Like, oh, if 5 people hit
Well,
me.
how would you know, right? Like if it doesn't explicitly say it, why would you ever assume
Yeah. So, um, I think this is okay. That's cool though. I think that's even for me that's new. I haven't heard of that, so that's super cool. But I just don't think people are using Miyamoto because of, you know, like that specific skill. You know.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, for sure. It used to be like the whole point was that like Brain bought that video out when Miyamoto was brand new, and we
Yeah.
discovered that in one of our reports. And so at the time, everybody was using Miyamoto. It's applicable now because a lot of people use Miyamoto because of the skin. They're like, oh, the skin makes him much better, and it's like, yeah, but when two of his skills are so highly limited, like he's dealing all this bonus damage, but part of it is like, oh, you're reducing enemy damage, or you're taking less damage from skill damage and stuff like that. Like you can tank stuff. It's not performing nearly as well. And it's not to sit here and say like, oh, Miyamoto is viable or Miyamoto isn't viable. It's just to simply say like, hey, like you should be aware that don't take things at surface level, like you're saying when you read skill hero or hero skills and stuff like
Right.
that, or stuff that IGG puts out, because IGG has had a historical issue of like saying one thing and then the behavior acts something completely different. I've called it out multiple times, had a few things patched because of it or whatever have you. Um, just be conscious, especially as they're like I'm saying that because when new heroes come out, if you go to like the official Discord and like say the hero gets put in the preview and everyone starts sharing the skills and stuff like that on Discord, everyone's already trying to assume, oh, this hero is going to be great, or this hero is not going to be great because of this, because of this, because of that.
Right.
And then when you actually go to actually like use the hero, you find that it's very underwhelming, or maybe it's even overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Just be conscious of it. You know, don't take everything at surface level. Is all I'm trying to say. I'm saying that just because I've seen and heard horror stories when talking to players
Yeah.
where they message me and they're like, "Oh, I invested into this because of this," and then I talk to them like, actually, it doesn't behave like that at all. It actually behaves like this. It's an issue from IGG side with the way they word stuff, and then now they're super discouraged because they're a free to play player, but they dumped 680 relics into a hero that isn't nearly as effective as they thought, right?
Right.
So that's all I'm trying to say. It's just
I'll
do
make
your
fun of you a
research.
little bit on that actually, because when Marco first came out, you were saying shit about him, right? And
Oh,
then,
absolutely. Yeah, no.
and
Marco,
then
I still feel the same way about Marco. Marco is shit unless you target him. Like, if you want to do HP reduction, go with Quad.
yeah,
Marco just works on rallies because it forces the hand that Marco's weak at. If
exactly.
Marco's not getting targeted, his kit is very mediocre at best, right?
I
But it's
see.
once he gets targeted when it does well.
So he's very situational in
He's
regard.
very situational, right? And,
Right.
and if you're a free to play player or a low spender, you don't have the time or the money to invest into situational heroes. You need something that's going to be effective at all times, right? So,
Now I was just laughing because someone in my comment section said, and this person's a whale, by the way. And this person said, "Oh, you're saying Marco is good for like this for rallying, but Z and Panda said he was bad, so I didn't power him up when he was weak."
yeah, I know. I've got shit for that as well. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, but if yeah, I was like, if you watch the video back, I specifically say it that like for your average typical person who's not going to be able to max Marco out in that event, they're going to be spending two golden relics per one relic or whatever to move him up, and awaken him. And I
yeah,
was like, it's just the same thing. You cannot be dumping at that point 1,300 relics into a hero that's situational if
right.
you're a free to play, right? Because if you're depending on you getting targeted for your hero to be focused, or I'm sorry, for your hero to be effective,
Yeah,
and you don't have the armaments to have them sustain that focus,
yeah,
then what are you really doing, right? So
right. No, 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 it's fair. I was just poking
I
fun.
know, I know, I,
Poking
I
fun
take the
at you.
jabs. I know. I
Yeah.
take that on the chin. I will say
Oh,
I was definitely I was drinking when I made that
oh, did
video. I
you?
remember. Yeah, I remember that specifically. I had just gotten back from I think it was like a company party type thing or whatever. We went
Yeah.
out to the bar, and then I had all these messages that were like, "Hey, what do you feel about Marco? How do you feel about Marco?" Oh, fuck it, I'll make a video, and then yeah.
Okay, dude, I think the number one reason why people like took that video and what you said and they said, "Oh, Marco's really bad," is I think it's the tone of your voice. Like you
Oh,
sounded,
dude, yeah, that's why I said you could hear it. Like, what
yeah,
other video do I sound like
yeah.
that?
I mean,
Yes.
like you sound so angry and pissed off in this video.
Oh,
Like
dude, I know because I think at the
you're like an
time
angry drunk
too.
or something. Just kidding.
Well, no, like I was just like that was kind of like the beginning of like that was the kind of like the beginning of the frustrations for me. I think at the same time when Marco came out, I
Yeah,
explicitly remember when people saw how expensive his what he was. I
yeah.
remember having four of the players in our alliance quit because
Oh
they're
wow.
like, yeah, if we're bringing out heroes, it's going to cost me twice as much in hero relics. I'm already playing on a thread. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I was already pissed off because I was just like, look, like this game, like you're gonna, and I think I highlighted that it's like one of my main issues with the hero at the time in that video. I was like, you're literally charging players 1,200 or 1,300 hero relics to awaken this hero, and trying to like make it all appealing because it's like this cross-functional hero or this cross-event hero, whatever have you, and so people
Right.
just automatically think like, oh, it's exclusive, I need to get them, whatever, and you're charging them double what it typically costs for a normal hero to get. So it's going to take free to play players forever to get or
Right.
obtain, and they're mediocre at best unless they're targeted. And I was like, that's very upsetting because if you're going to have a player spend that much time, money, and effort on a hero, there needs to be some sort of like a reward system to it. They need to be a little bit better than your typical hero at 680, right? So
Well, so based on that, then, so would you have the same opinion then for the other collaboration heroes like Jack Bronte and Mai? Then they're like kind of very specific, like niche heroes that.
it's very, very, very niche. My is really, really good for those players, especially in Apex, that have 40-50% move speed on their armament sets. And I just got done playing in Apex and I got to see it firsthand. Like I'd already heard the horror stories before coming back to Apex, but I know people in Apex that have 40% move speed on all five of their marches in Apex. So when they play with something like a May, it's you're never going to catch up to them, right? So, but that works really well for them. Like it can be very, very effective. Same thing with Jack. I mean, Jack is like a decent hero at best, but it's like when you're talking to a ranged player, and if they have like one or two 6 mil armament sets, Jack isn't in the conversation for that main hero that or hero pair that they're using in the field. And
Right,
if you're a ranged player and you're focusing on a 6 mil armament set,
right.
and you're rallying or garrisoning, Jack isn't even remotely in the conversation, and yet he's so
Oh,
expensive. So
yeah. I've as a range player, I've always seen Jack as like a third or fourth lineup hero.
yeah, exactly. But
Yeah,
for that expensive, it's like that doesn't make any sense. I'm all for the crossover events. I'm all for charging someone more fragments for a hero. That's totally fine.
right,
But give me some incentive to do that. You know what I mean?
right. No, it's fair. I think just from my perspective, from what I can see, they're just doing it kind of like it's like a shiny thing, but it's not like
Yeah,
to break
yeah.
the game. But yeah. But how much did it cost if you paid out of pocket to awaken them during those specific events? Do you
I
remember?
Oh gosh, man.
Like a
Like
ballpark?
because a lot of like the hero fragments required you to like unlock everything in the event or get so many points in the store that you could buy it out.
Yeah.
It was probably like 900 bucks.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh dear God, that is not worth it. That is not worth it.
Because you're not getting hero fragments on every reward, right? Like you're mixing that in with like your parts packs or whatever, like whatever it is like that you would get on like the roulette type systems or whatever have you,
Right.
or after you run the roulette 250 times, then you got 15 hero fragments for free, that kind of a thing.
Right.
So it was like you had to spend minimal amounts to get there, and then on top of that, then you would also have to go into the store and try to max out the points as well, which then would cost more. Yeah, so it was a ridiculous number.
But from my understanding from those events, the superb armaments that you get out of those were actually quite good.
Yeah, yeah,
And even the most recent one with the beasts, Otachi and the knife head, uh,
yeah,
which is considered to be really good as well.
yeah.
So would you say if you're not just targeting the hero fragments itself, you're doing a combination of getting the superb armaments as well as the beast, then it would be an okay value? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, when I did the Marco event, I specifically went for the Marco armaments
Yeah,
because so right now on my infantry as an infantry main garrison player, I won 3 Marco pieces, 3 legacy superb pieces,
I
and
see.
that's simply because some of the stats on the legacy pieces, even though they're lower in power, give much better basic attributes for garrison and tank rallies as opposed to the Marco ones. So like
Right.
one example is like one of the Marco pieces gives you like a squad capacity as opposed to I think it's like basic attack damage reduction or something like that. Like it's an obvious answer if you're in a garrison or rally. So I chased after those, and then I think I just used like flat relics to then awaken Marco after using some money to actually unlock him.
Wait,
So yeah, I think it's good value, especially going for the armament pieces for sure, and then of course the beast side of things. But yeah, it's one of those factors where, like if you have the money for it, you have the money for it. So
so did you just say that the squad capacity in those superb armaments is something that you should sought after?
no, no, no. I was saying that I steered away from that Marco piece that had the squad capacity because the legacy piece didn't have the squad capacity. It had something like a basic attack reduction or counterattack, whatever it was. It was just the legacy piece was better than the Marco piece for that one. So people were like, oh, why do you have a 7 mil infantry set when you could have a 7.4 mil set if you used
Right,
all Marco pieces?
right,
And that's because 3 of the Marco pieces were not better in Garrison. It was better for like field.
right. Yeah, I have noticed that some of the legacy pieces were definitely better than the collaboration ones.
Yeah, yeah.
And a quick question though for the collaboration ones though, like sometimes you'll see things like ranged damage reduction. Like, does that mean it's just damage reduction. They just added range because it's just range specifically. Like,
Yeah, it's just yeah, it's exclusive for those troops. So if you're running that infantry or if you're running that armament set like on a base garrison, it's not going to apply to your other troops. But yeah,
oh,
that's
I
pretty much
see. If you have like mixed squads and
yeah, mixed troops. Yeah.
I see, gotcha. All right, man. I think I'm out of questions for from. I mean, we talked for quite a bit. I hope I
Yeah.
didn't take too much of your time. I know.
No worries at all, man. No worries at all.
Yeah. You might have to drink after this now. Just kidding. Like, fuck that Charmander guy. Like,
No, dude. Yeah, I enjoy these things a lot, man. I appreciate you having me.
all right, dude. So, well, let's end it here. I certainly enjoy talking to you and learning from you, and I enjoy
Yeah, me
watching your
too, man.
videos. I even sometimes I watch some of your streaming videos just to see you kind of talking shit and stuff. It's kind of fun.
Oh
It's
God.
like because I see a different side of you. Because like when I watch your video explainers, you're more serious. But then I go to
Yeah.
your freaking like streaming video, you're like, oh, you bring your ass over here. I'm like, oh, it's like a different person.
Yeah,
So,
no, man, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
no. I mean, business is business and pleasure is pleasure, right?
exactly,
So,
right? Yeah. But yeah, man, it's been a pleasure, and thanks for coming out,
yeah.
man, and sharing your knowledge to the community and myself.
Yeah, thank you as well, man. I appreciate what you're doing for the community as well. I appreciate your videos for all the different player levels and player spend types and stuff. I've definitely recommended it, referred it to a lot of people because it's one of those things where I like breaking some of the more complex pieces down, but there's definitely a lack of IGG knowledge at all levels. So to have someone doing what you're doing is definitely a huge positive effect for the community side. So yeah, no, I appreciate what you're doing, man. I appreciate you having me here.
Thank you, appreciate that. So I'll stop recording right here. So thanks, everyone.